All right. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. All right. Day 2 of Back to the Basics. So many good things planned today. I'm very excited to jump into it. I've got just a beautiful group of but tabs to go through with you. Okay, let's see. I've got my coffee, I've got my water. Of course, as per usual, I slept 4 hours because I was putting up the most amazing podcast ever. Go check it out, please, on the Brittany Simon podcast channel. Why do older women date younger men? Spoiler, patriarchy. Okay? Specifically, not the same video as why do men date teenagers, though also patriarchy, but I could make a whole video of also predators who happen to be women. That is another video, but this one is a very particular topic because I think people don't understand how systems work and they impact people. So we're going to talk about that today. So just to remember, thank you for hyping it, guys. I appreciate that. Thank you for hyping it. Let me pause Elvin's music. It's distracting me because it's so beautiful. 1, 2, 3, big pause. If you want to check out Elvin, you can look at the description. The links are there for her Spotify, her YouTube channel, everything. Okay, so what is patriarchy? Great question. Thank you for asking. Patriarchy is a system. People, reinforce systems. And then it's a relationship, right? So systems influence people, people reinforce systems, and the cycle continues. So we're going to talk about patriarchy and misogyny. To be honest, they could be their own separate topics because patriarchy, system, misogyny, belief. That's why when people identify with systems like, I believe I'm a capitalist. Yeah, systems really aren't a belief, but sure. Same with the idea of I'm a socialist. Again, philosophically speaking, it's interesting that you want to identify with systems, but okay, sure, whatever. People identify with land, country. Why not? Why not? Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take you on an adventure as I usually do. And at the very end, as we preview tomorrow's topic, which will be on gender. So just caveat, today is patriarchy, misogyny, but not gender. Even though gender is a very important part of patriarchy, this isn't the gendered stream. Tomorrow is gender. And the next day will be race and ableism the next day. Because they're different. They're specific, right? So just keep that in mind, that tomorrow's whole stream will be about what is gender? What is a woman? Really? Okay. So keep that in mind. Okay. So here we go. Let's start. Everybody ready? Let me take a sip of coffee. Give me that caffeine. First, we start with our Tao Te Ching. Because why not, girls? Number 49, universality. Just stay with me here. Wise rulers have boundless hearts. For in the hearts of the people they find their own. The wise ruler treats the good with goodness and treats the not so good with goodness too, for goodness is its own reward. The wise ruler treats the faithful with good faith. the treats the unfaithful with good faith too, for good faith is its own reward. Wise rulers are universal. The people are their eyes and ears. So the other day on a video about MAGA Karens, and I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's stream, but somebody was saying, I don't have sympathy for these MAGA Karens, these women who uphold patriarchy. And I was specifically being very empathetic to these women, specifically one of them because she said she had been raped. And people were really upset. Okay, I can't believe. Okay, but the wise ruler treats the good with goodness and treats the not so good with goodness too. I want to be like this. My goal as a person, as a not a ruler, but let's just say, and notice it's genderless. My goal is to treat people well, even when they're evil. Because evil doesn't decide what I do. But it's interesting that we let evil decide what we do every day. Because we're reactionary. We think we're introspective and we're making a a calculated decision in how we react, but we're reactionary. You know, when I first came back to YouTube, somebody asked me what I do on YouTube, and I said, oh, I'm a reactionary. And they said, wait, what? And I was like, I react to people's content? They're like, no, that's not what that word means. So I was like, oh. They're like, reactionary? You mean you're a React content creator? I was like, yeah. But in my head, it just kind of slipped up as like, reactionary, imagine it like a trigger. Imagine a reactionary is just someone who acts without thinking, right? And they don't really like deconstruct, meditate, use wisdom, discern. They react, which is a lot of what goes viral on the internet, right? It feels really good, right? To be a reactionary, but it's not very helpful. I'll show you TikTok on this in the future about how when we call out victims of patriarchy, we must also make sure we do not engage in misogyny or sexism in order to do it. And by the way, the other day, just for clarification, somebody did worry that I was condoning mocking people for how they look online. That's not what I was saying. Sometimes you'll hear me, because I'm a human, say something like, fine, if you want to make fun of her, fine. I'm not actually condoning it. I'm saying that's a testament to your character. I'm not actually condoning it. So to that person who left that comment, don't worry, girl. I'm not actually engaging in approval. I'm engaging in like, you can be fucked if you want to be fucked. Okay? If you want to be an asshole, you can be an asshole because that's what that is. That's a choice you get to make. But that's on you. I'm not condoning it. That's on you. So for that person who heard me as if I was condoning behavior, I was not. Okay. Let's start here. The patriarchy is a myth, says this white man. Let's start here.
Why. The patriarchy was designed by men. So the patriarchy is a myth, and I'm going to show you why. The patriarchy was designed by men to benefit men. They have higher median income, get sexually assaulted less, and don't get called sluts when they sleep with a bunch of girls. I mean, it's clearly not. Men are less educated, more homeless, make up nearly all military casualties, about 94% of the prison population. They make up a majority of the most dangerous occupations like roofing, construction, and mining. They unalive themselves more, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, because the patriarchy hurts men too. Now let's flip that. The matriarchy was designed by women to benefit women. They're more educated, less homeless, make up next to none of the military casualties, only 6% of the prison population, dominate some of the safest occupations like education, HR, and medical assistance, and they unalive themselves less. I mean, it's clearly not. Women have a lower median income, get sexually assaulted more, and get called sluts when they sleep with a bunch of guys. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Well, yeah, because the matriarchy hurts women too. Do you see how easy that was? There is no patriarchy, there is no matriarchy. Just humans operating in a world where general tendency results from fundamental differences between the sexes. So the
Oh man, he thought he ate girls. He thought he was at a buffet eating. You know, he just went to sleep so proud of himself. I'm so sorry. With peace and love. Let's start here. Let's be so serious, because even though that's a funny TikTok, let's be so serious. I do not think men are inherently anything. I do not think your biological makeup guarantees an outcome. I do not think you being male means an action will follow. So first and foremost, I never judge men simply because they happen to be a man. And I certainly don't judge people simply because they are what you might refer to as a male, whatever that means, okay? But I do think because of the way you and us and we categorize men and women, obviously action follows because we're raised in a society. The opposite of patriarchy isn't matriarchy. The opposite of men is not woman. We are not opposites. We are variations. We are not opposites. And within those two binary variations, there's billions of other variations. Okay? Because every slight nuance creates a new expression of that variant. So do you guys see that this is so random. I didn't even think about talking about this, but now I'm going to talk about it. Did you guys see the color of the year is like white, but it's not white. You guys don't get it. It's a type of white. Oh, you ever go to Home Depot and you go to the paint section? They got all these variations of color and you say, that's blue, but is it blue? Okay. You watch The Devil Wears Prada. It's not cerulean, or it's not, what did she say? It's not blue. It's cerulean. Okay. We get it. Same thing with gender, same thing with expression, same thing with individual to individual consciousness, right? So when he feels like he ate because he believes, because patriarchy has taught him this, and men on the internet think it's true, that patriarchy and matriarchy are opposites. They're completely fundamentally different kinds of perceived systems. And only one system has been dominant for hundreds of years. Okay? You could argue thousands, but I'm not a historian and I'll leave that to people who are smarter than me. But I will say just for the recent history of our understanding of how things have gone, there seems to be a clear patriarchy. Now let's go on an adventure. Can you guys tell me when this video was made? Okay, I'm going to play a video for you. Can you tell me what year, time, date you think this video was made? This is Hands Off Venezuela. Okay, this is important. It sounds like you're like, what does this have to do with anything? Just stay with me here.
Going to Venezuela firsthand made me realize how much the media is lying to us about the reality on the ground. The U.S. government and its propaganda arms say it's a dictatorship where mass famine and civil unrest demands U.S. intervention. They deliberately don't tell you key facts. An economic war being waged inside by private businesses and outside of the country by crushing U.S. sanctions. Trump's sanctions have debilitated the Venezuelan economy, costing them $6 billion just in the last year. And sanctions do exactly as they're intended to do, by hitting the poor and working class people the hardest. Their strategy is to starve the people into submission, then cynically use that humanitarian crisis as the premise for more intervention. They say that millions of people are demanding the ouster of Maduro. What they deliberately don't show you are the millions who support Maduro, who voted for him, who are also in the streets protesting this criminal coup attempt. They say that a coup is democracy, that Guaido is restoring the Constitution by declaring himself president in a country that just held a presidential election last year. We've seen this propaganda playbook before, from Latin America to the Middle East, and it's literally being led by the same war criminals. John Bolton, who lied us into war with Iraq, Elliot Abrams, who facilitated a genocide in Guatemala. 1 million Iraqis died for a war based on lies, paved by the so-called free press. And they're doing it again. All progressives and anti-interventionists have to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Venezuela to defend their sovereignty and let them decide their own future, free from U.S. sanctions and intervention. We must call this what it is, an illegal coup underway by the bloodthirsty Trump regime to overthrow one of the last remaining independent nations in Latin America and plunder their oil. Trump has already threatened military intervention. Millions of lives are at stake. We need your voice now to speak up and speak out against another U.S. war for oil. Hands off Venezuela.
Okay, when was that made? Guess in the chat. When do you think? Now, obviously, the way I'm asking the question, you probably have some sort of a thought that's coming into your head. Like, oh, it was made this and then. It was, oh, I know this. Like, oh, it must have been made either way long ago or way recent ago, right? Okay, it was made in February 4th of 2019. And then what just happened? Maduro was kidnapped, right? Right? He was kidnapped. He was taken into custody by the U.S. government, and Trump says, we're gonna take over. We're gonna help Venezuela out, right? This is a part of patriarchy. The insidious root of entitlement that patriarchy allows, okay, isn't about figuring out who's right, U.S. government or Venezuela. It's to talk about why and how we have relationships with a sense of entitlement, right? So men, through patriarchy, have been conditioned to believe that they are entitled to how people treat people, okay? Entitled to dictating how you should treat people, especially specifically via gender. And what's interesting is they use it in positions of power to also then say, we will protect you as a whole ass government because our government has strong men leading the way. They say women can't be president because women won't be strong leaders when it comes down to doing the hard stuff. The hard stuff, stealing people's oil. And this is all connected as much as it sounds like, what does this have to do with each other? It's all influence. We can't and we do not live in a vacuum. Now, this is important. This is a distinction that I think is so, so important. You physically, literally cannot escape the systems around you, but you mentally can. You can philosophically introspect and meditate yourself out of identifying with systems. You cannot realistically and as a responsible adult disconnect yourself from those systems. And I think there's a difference here that's really hard for people to understand. Like, you viewing yourself through oppressive systems, not helpful. You understanding strategically how you play a role in the body you show up in these systems, very helpful. Very helpful. Okay. You internalizing it and taking it to bed with you, not helpful. Okay. We understand that patriarchy exists. We don't take it to bed with us. Okay? We understand racism exists. We do not take it to bed with us. Okay? We understand all of these negative things. We do not take it to bed with us. But we do, don't we? We internalize it. It becomes a part of our personality. It becomes the jokes we do on streams. It becomes the way we banter with people. Okay? Now, I understand. And something I did not add in here because I think it's really difficult is to understand how do we even get, right, people to change the way they think about gender if the system influences people. Well, it does influence people. And yet people still uphold the system. So let's talk about that. You guys probably have heard a lot about Chris lately because we've been covering him a bit. Listen to the way this simple conversation goes in terms of statistics on misandry, misogyny, and specifically this idea of men and women being like stronger or weaker. Just listen to the way this conversation goes. It's between a man and a woman, right?
Google Scholar search for misogyny. A Google Scholar search for misogyny yielded 114,000 results, whereas a search for misandry yielded only 2,340. People are not studying or really concerned about anti-male bias, especially from women.
There's actually an even better Google result that I think I didn't find until after I wrote that paper, but I Google imaged men are stronger than women, which is just empirically correct. But of the like 40 first images that popped up on the screen, I think one of them was yes, confirming that. And then there were like 2 neutral, and all the rest were images of women being stronger than men. So women running faster than men, women like raising a man over her head.
The best presentation, I think, of speed and power, the disparity between men and women, is the women's 100-meter record. So the women's 100-meter record that hasn't been beaten in, I want to say, 20 or 30 years is held by 100 or 200 under 18 males, like high school level males hit that female number. A Google Scholar search for misogyny yielded 114,000 results, whereas a search for
Okay. Now, when she says men are just stronger than women, that's like empirically true. I want to explain patriarchy to you in a way that sounds reductive, but I think it's going to be helpful. Let me pull it up. Give me a second. Okay. This is how I want to explain it. And this is, look, my hope is that I'm going to give people tools they've never had before, especially liberals who might find my content and be like, why is Brittany so anti-liberal? I used to be a liberal, and I used to think I was a progressive when I was a liberal. And until you really start to deconstruct in a really heavy way, there's no end goal here, but there is a progressive goal to move forward, right? So listen to this, okay? Listen to this. So I'm going to explain this from a people's perspective. In a second, I'll show you a TikToker who's going to explain it from a systems perspective. Okay, this is people, okay? So let's say you've got a girl, okay, on a playground. And then you've got a group of boys, okay? And these group of boys are having so much fun. They are just really enjoying the fuck out of what they're doing together. And this little girl says, hey, can I hang out with you? And they say, no, because you're a girl. Okay, that's hurtful. That really hurts our feelings. Like, damn, bro, just because like I'm a girl, I can't hang out with you, bro? And they go, no. It's like, okay. But now imagine that there's another girl. Let's put her over here. There's another girl on the playground. And this girl goes up to this girl and says, hey, do you want to hang out with me? And this girl goes, yeah, let's hang out. And then these girls together start doing something really cool over here. And then these boys go, hey, can we do that cool thing with you? And they go, no, because you're a boy. And the boys are like, what the fuck? Oh my God, what? You won't hang out with me because I'm a boy? That's not fair. That's misandry. Okay. Okay. Sorry. That's so real life right now. That's literally what is happening. Okay. I'm so funny. Okay. Then they go, and then, but what happens is sometimes in the group of boys, there's this boy here who realizes, hey, I'm not really getting along with these boys. Hey, girls, can I hang out with you? And the girls deem this boy a safe boy and go, yeah, you can hang out with us because we know that ultimately you realize these boys suck ass and you want to hang out with us even though we're girls. And not because, or just not despite that we're girls, but because we're just cool people, you want to hang out with us. Okay. So all of a sudden, right? This boy, they lose a number. So they lose one of their troops. And they're like, the fuck? Okay. And that troop goes over here. So now the circle gets wider, okay? And these boys are like, what the fuck? Let us hang out with you. And then it becomes, well, why can he hang out with you, but we can't hang out with you? Okay, what is he, gay or something? What is he, a fucking homosexual or something? It's like, okay, well, maybe we only let him in the group because he's gay. And we think gay men aren't a threat to women, which needs to be deconstructed. Or maybe he's just a straight guy that's fucking cool, bro. Or maybe he's just a nice person. Okay, right? Maybe he's just a nice person. But let's say one more guy goes, you know what? You guys kind of fucking suck. I'm going to go hang out with these people because they're nice. And then all of a sudden, right? The guys lose another one. They lose another bro, dude. Okay, they lose another bro. Okay. And then all of a sudden, right? Now we've got another bro. Okay. And the group gets bigger. And this group gets smaller. Well, now this group goes, well, fuck it. If I'm not going to be a part of the group, I'm going to go my own way. I'm going to become an incel. I'm going to become a MGTOW. Okay? So instead of changing to build community or join community, they resent community for not wanting to be in the original group and decide to make another group, and they go their own way. Okay. And this is what creates the division we see right now in the community or the gender war, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. But this was patriarchy, convincing them they were better because they were simply man. This is the result of people deconstructing patriarchy and saying, well, what if the gender didn't matter? Like, what if we were just vibing, bro? What if we go back to the beginning, when this girl came up to them and said, hey, bros, can I like chill with you? Okay, what if when she originally came up, they said, yeah, come on, hang out with us. Then there would have been no need for this group to start over here. Okay? Then it just would have been all one group. But since they rejected her, she had to make her own group. Now, let's say in another world, because this happens as well. Okay? This girl, okay, this is another dynamic. Let's say, so this girl created her own group, and this girl joined that group. Okay, and this girl joined that group, and this guy joined that group. And all of a sudden, a big group of people started, and now there's like a big division between an original group and another group. And let's say they have like similar-ish numbers. But now there's a battle about which group is the better group. Okay, but maybe this girl's kind of fed up because she doesn't like the way the group has changed. And she's like, fuck it, I'm going to go back to this group. Hey, guys, can I join you after all? And they go, yeah, fuck yeah, we have a girl on our team. Boo! Ha ha, we got it. We got another girl on our team. Okay? And that girl becomes the Speaker of the House. I'm just kidding. Okay. That girl becomes... Okay, listen. Okay. So then what happens is, okay, that girl joins the Trump administration. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, that girl becomes a Daily Wire spokesperson. That person becomes Candace Owens. Okay. Got it? Okay. This person is Candace Owens. But no, realistically, this person is key to validating this group. Because now the group that originally didn't want to belong, they didn't want them to belong. Well, see how they changed their mind? See how this person didn't like how the new people joined? Now, the way you can think of this person, you can think of them as the TERF feminist, and then the trans people and the non-binary people and all the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth wave feminists came in, and they were like, everybody is just people and deconstruct gender. And this person was like, boo, I just didn't want to hang out. Or I am the original feminist, and the original feminists are now hanging out with the original misogynists, and now they're all misogynists together. Okay? These are people dynamics that are reactions to systems. Okay? And that reaction to system is the reinforcement of the system. So the system influences the people. You can't hang out with us, you're a girl. Girl then builds a solution. Okay, I'll just like hang out with people who want to hang out with me. Boys get jealous. Why are you hanging out with them? Okay. So then it creates this dynamic where we are kind of right now, where now these original girls or women who were fighting against misogyny and patriarchy through like that second wave feminism, now they've become TERFs. Now they're J.K. Rowlings, and they've switched back over to the misogyny patriarchy side because now they're uncomfortable with the way the modern world is working. So instead of being progressive and deconstructing. They're reinforcing, right? Yeah, like Nicki Minaj chat says, like, boys, let boys be boys. Let boys be boys is that dog whistle for patriarchy, therefore misogyny. So these things have to play together. Patriarchy is a system that says men are inherently smarter, better, stronger, faster. Going back to that Chris TikTok, men are stronger than women. That's just empirical evidence, is a dig at women. Women will never be good enough. They'll never be good enough hairdressers or cooks or politicians or athletes. Therefore, patriarchy makes sense. And therefore, misogyny is built off the back of that framework, which then allows men, just the science, that men are better than women, which then allows them to reinforce the patriarchy. And then women internalize it and start to believe, actually, fuck, men may actually be better than us. So systems influence people, people reinforce systems, and because they feel reinforced by the system, they start to actually create prejudice and bias and real bigotry towards group of people for being born. Why is patriarchy, or why is misandry not the opposite of patriarchy? So misandry can exist, and there are groups of people that it exists in. Ironically enough, it's the TERFs. The same original feminist, the J.K. Rowling feminist who switched sides and became a part of the guy group, actually is the misandrist. But the belief of the patriarchy is that these people are the misandrists, but they're not. They're literally not, okay? And I'm going to explain it in a second. Hold on. I just realized. Well, actually, okay, we're good. So the J.K. Rowling misandrists, what do they believe, right? They believe men and women should be separate. They believe men are dangerous inherently, biologically. They're bioessentialists, right? They believe trans women are men, and that's why they're a threat to women's safety, right? So the TERF feminist, the original woman who started this whole argument against patriarchy, I'm being really reductive, but stay with me here, okay? Ends up being the people that the misogynists end up becoming friends with. And then they complain that nobody cares about men's mental health. Nobody cares about men's feelings. Nobody wants to protect young boys, right? Which it's just it's okay. This is why conservatives out of one side of their mouth will say men are our protectors, and on the other side will say men are also the number one predators. Right? Okay, let's see. Chat's going crazy. Let me see. What's happening? Is chat okay? Do I need to intervene at all? You guys got this? Everything good? Is it just a person in chat who's hating because, Yeah, I think they're trolling. Okay, I'll just mute this. I'll block this person. Okay, so just a person trolling, right? Like, I'll just mute them. It's fine. Okay, so let's go on to the next segment. Okay, this is a guy explaining patriarchy as like a system. Okay, I just explained it as people. So this is important. So now, okay, hold on. Men like systems and women like people. But I am raised as a woman. Right? Now, keep in mind, I'm coming from this perspective as a gender fluid person who really does identify as a man in a big and prominent and like distinct way, separate from sort of a cis woman's experience. Like, I am very far from a cis woman's experience at this point in my life. Like, it's very clear to me that I'm not having the same experience as them. So just keep that in mind as I talk, right? So I feel like I have an inner understanding of men's communities because I feel like I'm having an internalized male experience that makes me not like the typical man. So if I was actually born AMAB, I would be like the soft boy, the boy who's not like quite good enough, the boy who doesn't run as fast as everybody else, but is always down to run with the boys, the boy who like I would be, I would be like too feminine, but I wouldn't be like a femboy or something. I would just not be as strong as the other guys. And so when you're that person in the dynamic, you get sort of an understanding that that's why even within patriarchy, men can feel subjugated and discriminated against because other men bully other men for not being strong enough, right? That's the Andrew Tate alpha male bullshit, red pill crap, right? Okay, so people is my specialty because I was raised as a woman. And I do enjoy systems, but I think systems are inherently meant to be bad. I think it's really difficult for us to have good systems. And so I tend to find them a little not helpful. But let's watch this guy explain patriarchy as a system.
Comments from men talking about how the patriarchy doesn't exist and it's actually men who are oppressed. So let's take a minute to explain what's going on and what the reality is. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of Bob here. Bob is a genuine guy who really does believe that men and women are equal and are born that way. Now, as Bob goes through life, he begins to perceive women getting a number of advantages that don't apply to him. They don't get drafted, they get to stay at home, there are specific loans for female-owned businesses, and so what Bob sees is women pulling far ahead, leaving men way behind. And as Bob takes a broader look, including men and women from various different groups across society, he sees that same pattern. Everybody is born equal, but he perceives the Overwatch folks getting specific advantages. And the Star Wars group with more money and political power get more advantages. And then the women in those groups get those same advantages we talked about before. And before you know it, poor Bob is at the back of the class looking at everybody else getting ahead and feeling like men are thoroughly disadvantaged. The reality is very different. While we may think we're all equal, the circumstances into which you are born will already greatly affect the opportunities that are available to you in life. For the vast majority of history, Bob here has been the only one that could acquire wealth, property, and power. The rights for everybody else for those things are less than 5 to 6 generations old. Their grandparents' started a race that this dude has been crushing for centuries. The end result is that it looks a little more like this, where certain men are less advantaged than particular women, and certain women are more advantaged than other women. But make no mistake, Bob here still has the lion's share of advantage. Now for Bob, this feels wrong because he too struggled to make ends meet. He doesn't feel advantaged, and there's certainly a lot of people who feel more advantaged than him, such as the wealthy sharks who are way ahead of everybody, and for whom laws are just sort of more of a suggestion. But simply because there are people who are more advantaged than you does not mean that you yourself have not enjoyed the benefits of certain privileges. And there may also be ways in which what you think are privileges are not actually. We've already covered how stay-at-home parenting is not necessarily an advantage, but an economic disadvantage. And there are more subtle ways in which these advantages show up that might not be obvious. For instance, men are more likely to complete treatment programs for substance use, because these programs do not provide daycare, disproportionately affecting women who more often have kids, causing them to drop out and not be able to get the treatment that they need. I feel the fear for men is if they accept this reality, then they have to keep their heads bowed and apologize for all of the sins of their ancestors, and that's not really the goal here. The goal is, as we continue the modern work of dismantling these patriarchal systems, by better understanding how they harm and disadvantage select groups, including men, we can provide better solutions that end that harm. But if we start by denying reality, then the solutions we offer are no good because they're not fixing a real problem. Meanwhile, the very real harm done to all groups, including men, will just continue.
So basically, what happens here is there is a truth denial. So there's a branding of patriarchy and a truth denial of the story you tell yourself. Okay? So the man tells himself, well, my life has been hard, therefore. And by, in about 10 or so videos, I'm going to show you how this relates so strongly to finances. And remember, I think being a whole human being is a relationship with your finances, your mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and who you are in the story. And nothing reassures me so much more that money is not the answer than watching people who make $250,000 be unable to save anything and be in so much debt, when I make so much less than that and we live within our means. And I'm looking at them like, hold up. And again, it's because we are infinitely more joyful, and we have deconstructed patriarchy and gender in our marriage. I'm going to show you how this plays a role in everything that we're doing, from raising kids to finances, especially since so much of patriarchy is about capitalism. So much of this is about money. But before we do, let's hear from our one of our favorite anti-misogynist / smashing the patriarchy men public offender.
The patriarchy convinced men to hate femininity. And once you hate femininity, it don't matter who it's attached to. It don't matter if it's attached to a woman, a man, a child. It don't matter if it's now and then. They put everything that makes men decent people: integrity, patience, intelligence, the pursuit of intelligence and education, having empathy, being nurtured. They put all of that under the umbrella of femininity. Conveniently, those are female traits. That's what females do, right? And it automatically does the trick, right? Now men don't want to be smarter. They don't want to be more empathetic. They don't want to because those are woman traits. That's the game. That's how they get you. So
Elon recently, in the last few years, said empathy, right? Empathy is bad. Empathy is weakness. Empathy, when you're empathetic, people can take advantage of you. Okay. Trump just kidnapped the president of Venezuela. And that made some people feel like, yes, like that's what a man does. No woman would be able to pull this off. Thanks to George W. Bush, Saddam was taken down. Except to say, Every time a man claims he's liberating you, raise an eyebrow. Because under patriarchy, when a man liberates you, it mostly is coming at the expense of you, yourself, and the earth, which we've seen time and time again with all of these so-called protective governments, all of these so-called great leaders. They're doing it to liberate you. Oh, are they? Are you sure about that? Because if liberation only comes in the form of a man doing it, how is this liberation? But that's what patriarchy says. Patriarchy says, give it to a man. He's got it. He can handle it. Don't give it to a woman. Women are too sensitive. Women can't handle this. Women would, they wouldn't be strong enough, right? All right, let's go. Oh, wait. Chat said, Brittany, what are you reading? So this is Tao Te Ching. This is the book of the way. This translation is Sam Torode. Sam and then Torode, Torode. There's lots and lots of translations, right? And this is the one that I have, but you can get all kinds of translations of Tao Te Ching if you guys are interested. It says Tao Te Ching is a series of meditations on the mysterious nature of the Tao, the way, the light, the very source of all existence. Again, it's not something you literally have to believe in. It's something you are inspired by. It says, compiled in China around 2,500 years ago, the Tao Te Ching is beloved by seekers all over the world. So you don't have to. It's not something you religiously believe in. It's something you garner wisdom from. So that's why I really like it. Okay, so you guys can, if you're interested in that. Okay. Let's go to our bestie, Britt Hartley, who I've done a collaboration with, as you know. And we've seen this before, but let's just get a refresher on how good this one is, okay?
Kindness and equality doesn't apply to your wife. From Gandhi, I learned that kindness and equality doesn't apply to your wife, whom he controlled and abused. Through the atonement of Jesus, I learned that bleeding out or feeling the pains of the world is only valid when it is done by a man. When a woman bleeds, it is unsanitary, and when a woman feels the suffering of the world, she's histrionic. The Buddha taught me about enlightenment, but also that women are roadblocks to enlightenment, and that you can leave your wife and child in order to sit under the Bodhi tree. Einstein taught me about the god of Spinoza and having awe for the nature of reality, but that his first wife didn't deserve to be in his footnotes. Her place was to do his housework. In school, I learned about civil disobedience and civil rights from Martin Luther King, but also that if you are a woman, black or white, you are still a sexual object first. In Mormonism, my first faith language, I was taught that God spoke to man and God spoke to a prophet, and that God demanded polygamy, and that the young girls who were told that they needed to marry Joseph Smith in order to prevent their families from going to hell were just collateral damage to this God. I learned about simple living and inner peace from the Dalai Lama, but when he was asked if a female Dalai Lama could succeed him, he said yes, but in order for her to do anything useful, she needed to be attractive. When he was called out on this, he said it was just a joke. And I learned from the holy texts in the West that God, with his male pronouns, is the one who single-handedly creates life, not the women who continue to die in childbirth. Over and over, I have learned that men have taken my innate spirituality and given me back crumbs of what the sacred feminine used to be. In every field of spirituality, in all of my wanderings, I have been asked to prove my worth as a woman. In almost every field of spirituality that I've explored, I've been asked to prove my worth. I've been asked if I'm worthy enough to enter their temples, if I've solved a koan to their liking, if I've had a kundalini awakening at the level that they have. They will ask if I have the appropriate credentials and the right acromens to even sit at the table. I've been told over and over that my life that is rich with spiritual connection is only acceptable when it is judged acceptable by a man or a male god. In return, they demand their priesthoods and their tithings and their titles and their trophies. For me personally, it took years to disentangle the internalized patriarchy from 2 decades of study in religion and philosophy and history. And what I learned from the female mystics is that spirituality needs none of that pomp and circumstance. Ideas can be powerful even when they are shared over coffee and conversational language. Books can be profound even when they're not written in language that can only be read by other academics. Rituals can be sacred even when they're household routines. A contemplation practice where you listen to a podcast while walking your dog is just as valid as being able to sit in a full lotus pose. Liturgical calendars can operate around the birthdays and anniversaries of the people who are important to us. The sacrament can be the gift of sourdough bread that you got from a starter that you bought at a farmer's market. Revelation is when an intuitive friend texts, "How are you doing? Are you okay?" Female mystics taught me that divinity can be found even in the most ordinary places when life and spirituality are so enmeshed that they can't be separated. Follow me here for more no-nonsense spirituality, coming to you with my first post in the new She Shed.
This is Britt Hartley. You can check her out. No Nonsense Spirituality. I also did a collaboration with her as well on my YouTube channel. You can see our talk together. So again, patriarchy is a system. It hasn't always been around from my understanding. Again, I'm very limited in this, so historians in the chat speak up, but from my limited understanding of watching historians talk about it, the illusion that patriarchy has always been around is the same as saying that traditional marriage has also always been around, when that we know that's not true. We know that these systems were deliberate and on purpose, and they came out of the minds of man, who decided to reinforce these gendered stereotypes, that we don't have exact evidence to believe that human beings were just like plucked, into existence and like decided, oh yes, men over women, same thing with anything we talk about when we talk about it's always been this way. The conversation of it's always been this way. The only thing I would say that has always been this way is we are inherently flawed as a species, but our flaws are a part of our makeup. Therefore, we are perfect the way we are, but also we can deconstruct further to have a deeper relationship with our biological experience. So even if we dismantled patriarchy, we would still have to look in the mirror and deal with ourselves. Okay? Right? Okay, chat, I'm going to deviate for just a second. I actually covered this at the beginning of stream today. You said, do you plan to respond to my comment on the latest video of the girl who called herself pretty? As a viewer, I was feeling a little disappointed and surprised. I did read your comment. I just mentioned in the beginning that I was not giving permission to people to make fun of how this girl looks. I was more saying, if you want to do that, you can. It's a testament to your character. I also did read through your comment, but I did think you misunderstood me a bit. So I think like I can't go over your comment today, but maybe next week when we're done doing this series. But I as I was reading your comments, I just felt like very deeply misunderstood. And so I felt like there was too much to take apart, which is, kind of perfect for today. We get overwhelmed when we have a bunch of things that are wrong and we try to say, oh, let me answer that for you. But when I answer this and you're also wrong about this, or you misunderstood, it feels like, uh-oh, and then I get overwhelmed with and that's what patriarchy can feel like. Bringing it to today's topic is like, let's talk about why men and women are suffering in relationships, but also let's talk about patriarchy. Oh, and don't forget misogyny. And also don't forget this over here, and don't forget this over here, and don't forget this. And then all of a sudden it just feels like, you know what? I'm going to give up. But we're not going to give up. We're going to, one step at a time, deconstruct, take apart, learn details, reconstruct it to something healthier. So I hear you. I see you. I saw that comment. I felt deeply misunderstood, but that's okay. And that's a part of us understanding each other and showing up here, because we're all feeling this way, right? Like men are feeling deeply misunderstood. Women are feeling deeply misunderstood. Friends are feeling deeply misunderstood, right? So when we think about how to help people, we must first gain understanding. Then we can move forward. So just a reminder, I do not believe men are literally inherently evil, bad, perverted, or predatory. I think they are simply biological creatures existing in life the same as us. I do not think the opposite of a man is a woman. I do not think woman is opposite of man. I do not think patriarchy is opposite of matriarchy, right? These things are not the same. Okay, I do not think misogyny is the opposite of misandry. Like opposites insinuate something that isn't really true about our existence. I am not the opposite. Tall is not the opposite of short when we're talking about relationships with our loved ones and whether or not we're attracted to a partner because they're tall or short. When you start to put a value on these things simply because they're opposites, you degrade the relationship you're having, right? And so when we do those things, we miss the nuance. We miss the forest for the trees. Okay, speaking of a reductive perspective, let's watch Scott Galloway. I'm so sorry.
And so single men are basically...
Whoops. Oh my God. I can't believe I did that. Okay.
Single men are basically the most dangerous thing in the world. There's no group in the world that's essentially...
Uh-oh. You know who else has said something like that? Ethan! Not Ethan, me, Jordan Peterson. The most dangerous predator is a single man who hasn't been touched by a woman in over 1,000 years. That's why the vampires go on rampages. Anyways, Jordan Peterson has said the same thing. Let's talk about it.
Faster than women.
Right.
More women are seeking tertiary education globally than men now.
Yeah.
Twice as many women have been elected to some sort of form of...
Pause. Why are women seeking education and men aren't? Going back to that The TikTok we watched before about vulnerability and men not wanting to look weak by a public offender, anything that's feminine, education became feminine, so men stopped going to school. Andrew Tate, all these conservatives said, school's for pussies. Like, they were like, Bugatti, school education. These liberal institutions, these woke brainwashing machines, they made schooling feminine, so men said peace. And then men are like, we're not going to school. Girl, why aren't you going to school? Oh, the humanities are for girls. Education is for girls. Gender studies is a girl's study. You literally decided which degrees were girl degrees. And then you made fun of women for going to school. And then after we went to school, and by the way, I didn't even go to school. But after these women went to school, you got mad that they're going to school and graduating because you decided not to go? And I'm saying, girl, go to school. Your sense of purpose should not be partnership. Women are realizing this, though not fast enough. Girls, you're kind of slow on it, honestly. But the boys are way behind. Men still believe that their only value as a person is their partnership to women. And that is because of patriarchy. And I'm saying your value as a man, your value as a human is so much more than your ability to get a female partner or a woman partner. Okay? All right.
Parliament in the last 30 years, more single women own homes in the U.S. than single men. In urban centers, women are making more money under the age of 30 than men. And by the way, we should do nothing to get in the way with that.
Yeah, no,
that's
dude.
Amazing.
I'm a League of Their Own fan, you know?
That's amazing. But the second order effect we were planning on, and we don't like to talk about this, is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy shorter than them. I bet it's 80%. They're just embarrassed to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay, 50% of women won't date a man shorter than them. I bet it's 80%. That's because of patriarchy. Patriarchy told you that you want to be 6 feet, was it 6 feet, 6 inches, 6 figures? And then women feel ashamed for dating men that are shorter than them because people make fun of them. How is he going to protect you? He's what do they call him? A manlet, right? He's a manlet. How is he going to protect you? How are you going to feel small with a shorter man? You know what I mean? Or, all of these things that go into this, and then men play into it, right? Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit, his whole thing, right, is he's 6 feet. That's a big part of his brand. If your height is so big on your brand to prove you're a man, then what are you saying to all the men that aren't that height? You know what I mean? So again, if a woman deconstructs, I agree, she shouldn't care about the height of a man. But she would have to deconstruct what? Patriarchy. She would have to deconstruct patriarchy. Just like a man, in order for a man to date a woman who is his age, let's say that he's 40, who has a body count of, let's say, 10 partners, in order for that not to be an issue, he would have to deconstruct what? Patriarchy. Because only under patriarchy do you decide a human's value based off of the gender they're born, the height they were born, and their experiences that you've decided are not attractive because she's a woman. Because again, a man who has many bodies is attractive, but a woman who does is not. Patriarchy, 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 patriarchy. So again, if you're a man who genuinely wonders why your life is hard, I know why your life is hard, probably. Though this is reductive to say because every individual man also has his own struggle. And it's valid. You might be ADHD, you might be neurodivergent. You might have to admit to yourself that honestly, I don't even want to work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think I want to work. Okay. And then you have some women that still are capitalistic, or some women that still say a man who doesn't work is like a pathetic man. They need to deconstruct that. Because that's that tie into capitalism and patriarchy that works together, right? That idea that like a man should work instead of just saying as a team, how are we going to provide for this family? And does it always look like capital? Or, so again, all of these things take a long time to deconstruct. They don't happen overnight. It takes a really long time. And I'm going to talk about this today. Again, we're going to talk about finances because as much as we think that this doesn't all come back to every other facet of our life, like you're not understanding how the system works. The system impacts every part of your life. Every single part of your life is impacted by the system of patriarchy. Every single part, including your relationships with your mothers and including the relationships with your fathers, including the relationships with self, every single part, guys. Okay, let's go back to Scott.
Metaphorically, every year women are getting taller
Dear God.
and men are getting shorter.
Yeah.
So
Is that true?
Well, metaphorically, if you look at how many 100% women are killing it right now.
Yeah.
50% more women will get college degrees this year. Right. So
More than men?
it's 60-40.
Right.
It used to be 40-60.
Got it. So that's it. Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, it's about 50% more in a couple of years.
1 in 3 men walking down the street under the age of 30 hasn't had sex in the last year. So in May,
Yeah, what the fuck was that metaphorically? Scott Galloway, by the way, is just a business guy. He does not know what he's talking about. He's just riding the wave of taking advantage of vulnerable men to make something of himself. He is not to be trusted. Okay? There are very few men who are working on behalf of men to get men out of inceldom that are qualified, and I can only think of one. Okay? I can only think of one man that I even think is slightly qualified or more qualified than any of the rest. He is not even qualified. He is purely doing this to make money.
if we're going to have an honest conversation about mating, we have to have an honest conversation. Women mate socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. 3 out of 4 women say economic viability is key to a mate. Only 1 in 3 men state that. So when the pool of horizontal and up of men is shrinking, there's less household formation, there's less relationships. And the weird thing about a lack of a relationship is that when a woman doesn't have a romantic relationship, she finds more productive uses for that additional energy. She'll channel it into work. She'll channel it into her friends, into her family. Guys come off the rails when they don't have the guideposts of a romantic relationship. I think
He's right. And guys, it's not because you are inherently born a woman. It's because you were raised under patriarchy that you do this. Women are better community members, and we put our energy into our community because patriarchy trained us that way. We are the unpaid laborers of society. We are the unpaid laborers, right? See, you think it's to your credit. You're like, women are so great. Are you? Or are you just trained under patriarchy to be a slave? And you think, oh, because I'm a good slave, it must be because I'm a woman. Instead of actually realizing it's because patriarchy has literally trained you to take on all of the labor of the people around you. And so when you are single, you participate and keep showing up for people, and often at the expense of yourself, which I will cover later. I have something to show you about that. Okay? So when we have these conversations, remember that women who give themselves a pat on the shoulder for being these great community members are also that way because they've been shaped by patriarchy, and that's not a compliment. I am not complimenting you. Because I know some man out there is going to be like, see, patriarchy's good. I am not complimenting you. I'm not complimenting you. Okay? That's not a compliment.
guys need that guidepost of a relationship. And oftentimes when the men don't have the guidepost of a relationship, they become insecure. They start becoming more prone to conspiracy theory. They start blaming women. They start blaming other people. I mean, some of the skills to maintain a healthy relationship are some of the same skills required to be professionally successful. And so single men are basically the most dangerous thing in the world, is a young, single, broke man. And I don't want to pathologize every guy that doesn't have a girlfriend. Yeah. If you look at the most violent, unstable societies in the world, they have a preponderance of one thing, and that is young men without a lot of economic and romantic opportunity.
Okay, Chet, fair. Says, I don't like the use of slave in the North American context. I feel like the history of chattel slavery in the Western Hemisphere affects how we use that word. Okay, fair. Women are victims to patriarchy and are the unpaid laborers of that patriarchy, and uphold that system at the expense of themselves, but also are convinced and conditioned under patriarchy to think it's for their benefit. So, I don't know what word to use. You're right. I shouldn't have used that word. I should have used a better word. It's just the first word that came to mind, of course. But like, there is probably a better word for this. Like, but even unpaid laborers, that has a connotation. You're right. There is a better word. I can't think of it right now.
And you're saying we're creating more of those now?
Oh, 100%.
Wow. So
twice as many women under the age of 30 are in a relationship versus men under the age of 30. 3 million millennial men have given up on dating. They're not even trying.
Bye. Okay, listen. Hold on. He said something and I forgot what it was because I got distracted.
And so becoming more prone to conspiracy theory, they start blaming women. They start blaming other people. I mean, some of the skills to maintain a healthy relationship are some of the same skills required to be professionally successful.
Oh, okay. So this is very important. Again, playing back into money. We're going to go over this later, okay? The same skills to be in relationships is similar to having a job. Men are suffering in the working market. They're suffering in economics. They're suffering in education. They're suffering in interpersonal relationships. They're suffering. They're declining. But it's not because women are more successful, because women are also suffering. It is because when people are trained under a system to say you operate under these conditions and the conditions change, naturally the system must change to adapt to those conditions, but it hasn't. Patriarchy is not willing to adapt to the conditions that are changing. So what they blame is the conditions changing instead of changing to reflect the conditions. And so again, you do this thing where it's like women are changing, so it's the issue. Now, I'll say this. This was news that came out in October that I thought was really interesting and kind of like is a testament to how patriarchy can be scary when we talk about groups of people. So you know that hypothetical people say, I don't know if you grew up in this bubble, they'll say, imagine a room full of 200 women. Okay. Now imagine a man is thrown naked into that room and is walking across through like imagine the 200 women and the man is like walking. Are you afraid for that man? Are you worried about the man who is naked in a room of 200 women? Like, do you have an instinctual, intuitional, do you have a bodily reaction of like, what do you think? Like, does anything happen? For me, it doesn't, because in my lived experience and from what I understand of people, usually those women would actually probably be more afraid of that singular man, and or they'd probably cover him, and or they might think he's a predator trying to get his rocks off, but they would probably either try to read the situation for what it is, or maybe they'd hit him with a sandal and say, get out of here, what are you doing? Because they might think he's a predator, or they might just like give him clothing. It really depends on the situation. But I don't have a fear for the woman's safety. Because I don't have a fear for the man's safety. Like, not in a big way, but nor for the woman, to be honest. Because like 200 women and one guy, I think we're pretty good. But, okay. Think about it this way, right? Then the situation gets reversed, but we're not, okay. A group of 200 men and a naked woman walks past them, okay, in a room. So there's 200 men and the woman is walking naked. Are we afraid for her? And usually people say yes, right? Usually people do say yes. Why do they say yes? Because again, even conservatives who say men are your protectors also say men are your attackers and predators. So I am afraid for her. I'm not afraid for them. I am afraid for her. And I am afraid for her because every data point I have, including statistics, shows us that she is in danger. That's why women choose the bear, not the man in the forest. Because actual data shows us we should. Now, this story out of Sudan we covered when it happened, and it was quite telling, but let's just refresh our memory. Trigger warning, suicide, rape. Okay, it's a very short video, but...
In Sudan, more than 130 women committed suicide in a single day for fear of being sexually abused by warring military groups in the nation's civil war. The news came to light recently after a publication on social networks and has given way to a wave of denunciations comparable to the increase in sexual crimes. Hala Al-Kadib, Regional Director of the Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa, confirmed that the reports about the denunciation are absolutely true. Kadib confirms that since the first day of the war, women have been subjected to brutal abuses, and notes that in this conflict, the main victims of the paramilitary forces are girls and women between 17 and 35 years of age.
Oops, ignore that. So when we hear that story, okay, what we're hearing is when people are pushed into the corner, they do things. Right? So like when women are pushed into a corner in situations, they make a decision, but they should never have made that decision. When men are pushed into a corner, they make a decision, but you don't hear groups of men committing suicide to avoid getting kidnapped by women because women aren't controlling armies that, invade people's homes and destroy their land, right? That's not a woman's game. To be fair, under patriarchy, we're not allowed to make it our game. Now, some women do try. Some women do try to make it their role to be that woman. And that's how they, make it in patriarchy, right? If I can't be the greatest woman I can be, maybe I can be the greatest man I can be. Okay? And so when we think about it from that lens, we have to remember that women who are victims under patriarchy sometimes feel like the greatest way to survive and prove that they're worthy is to then appeal to men, which then comes at the expense of everybody else. But everyone is already coming at the expense of everybody else. So the reason why women who uphold patriarchy are still less accountable than the men who control it or maintain it is because they are still secondary to the power structure. Even white women, as much as like we want to point at white women and make fun of them, and I get it because they hold some systematic, some power over in white supremacy, right? I get it. They also still are always going to be secondary under patriarchy. Always, always, always. And so I can have a lot of empathy. So here I'm going to show you again why I have deep empathy for conservative women, especially conservative women who have been assaulted, because I know coming from that bubble, all those women blame themselves. All of those women internalize that it's their fault, even if they were 5 years old. Even if they were 5 years old. And if you can't have empathy for at least that part of their lived experience, then you're not doing any better than anybody else. Okay? And you might as well uphold the patriarchy yourself at that point, right? Tao Te Ching, wise rulers have boundless hearts, for in the hearts of the people they find their own. The wise ruler treats the good with goodness, and treats the not so good with goodness too. For goodness is its own reward. Okay, we want to be kind more than anything. So here's something that's been happening on the internet, which I understand. So first we have to remember that there's a difference between what we say in private, and we understand people are seeing us, they understand our nuances, they understand who we are and where we're coming from, and what we say kind of online, the jokes we make. You know this trend of women sharing their horrible husbands online and boyfriends, and all of us are like, keep that offline? Well, the truth is, and I said this the other day when we reviewed that conservative woman, and, you know, I said the same thing. And I said, honestly, this is probably her greatest outlet to be heard for the first time in her life as a victim under patriarchy. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for their situation. And separate from that, we can give people the tools to get better. But remember that women or men or whatever gender under patriarchy that upholds the systems of oppression, they are both participants and victims. This is why life is complicated, because you want a perfect victim the same way you want a perfect predator. And there's no such thing. Okay? There's no such thing as a perfect victim, and there's no such thing as a perfect predator. And that is, well, honestly, for another class, because it's too advanced, honestly. Okay? It's probably too advanced. Okay, here we go. Women are lining up to carry water for patriarchy. Stop. Let's see.
Patriarchy, where we see women posting about the shitty things that their husbands do, and instead of the other women saying, hey, that shouldn't be happening to you, the response is becoming overwhelmingly, then leave. If you're not going to divorce him, you need to shut the fuck up, because I'm tired of hearing about women who won't leave, who just come online and complain, and I need women to understand how very dangerous this is. This is not empowerment. This is not feminism. That is patriarchy with a pink microphone. Because what you're really saying is your pain is only valid if you've already left and you're free. And that still tells women to live in silence. We need women talking about what's happening in their marriages. We need these stories visible. They educate younger women. They denormalize mistreatment. They give language to things women were taught to swallow. And they often become the very first crack in the conditioning that keeps women stuck. Not all women decondition at the same pace. How wonderful that would be. Not all women have the same resources. Not all women are safe to leave. Not all women can afford to leave. Not all women can log on to Zillow and Indeed and magically build a new life by next Tuesday. Some of these women left the workforce to raise their kids. Some were pushed out. Some have massive resume gaps. Some can't get hired in this job market. Some can't afford housing. Some can't afford childcare to get a job. Some are financially controlled. Some are psychologically worn down. Some are scared. Some are isolated. Some are still waking up. And reducing all that to, well, I would never, or just leave, or shut the fuck up if you're not going to leave, is wildly ignorant and massively misogynistic. It creates this fake hierarchy where certain women get to feel superior because they've already done work that others are still in the middle of or have thankfully never had to do. That is women carrying water for the patriarchy, because patriarchy thrives when women police, shame, and silence each other. And one of the more ignorant takes I've seen recently is believing that the only understandable reason for staying as if you've been in a domestic violence situation, as if financial dependence, reproductive labor, coercion, emotional abuse, career sacrifice, psychological erosion, and systemic barriers don't count. That is dense, that is harmful, that is ignorant, and that is exactly how women have always been kept quiet. Women speaking about their marriages are not the problem. It is the conditions trapping them that are the problem. And if you are far enough out that you can't remember what it took to wake up, or you've never had to be in that situation, do not weaponize that against women who are still in it. We don't liberate women by telling them to shut the fuck up or leave. We liberate women by making sure they don't have to carry it alone. Let's talk about—
Okay, now I want to relate this to the podcast that I just put out about why older women go for younger men and why it's patriarchy in this particular context. Charlize Theron tells a story about how she was 50 and she slept with a guy who was 26 and how it was the greatest sex of her life. How all of her life, she internalized this idea that her job as a woman was to prioritize a man's orgasm over her own. And I did put in that podcast, give people grace for rolling their eyes for something you just figured out that we figured out 20 years ago. Because with peace and love, while you're busy figuring it out, you are also upholding patriarchy, right? And systems of oppression. The same way that our conservative parents in 2026 might be like, you know what? Gay people do deserve rights. It's like, thanks, bro. I appreciate that, but Jesus Christ, that took forever. Same thing with anything else, you know, racism, ableism, anything else. And we must have the patience for it. We must meet people where they are, and we must criticize people for where they are. But these things should be separate. My empathy for you being stuck in a bad situation is separate from my criticism of your opinion, okay? And I understand where your opinion is coming from. I'm not criticizing you for staying in your abusive marriage. And also, if you hold an opinion about politics or belief systems or bigotry, I'm going to hold you to those opinions. But that is separate from your abusive marriage, even though it's influenced by the system. Okay? Super chat from Selvage. Thank you so much. Says, thank you for the nuanced takes on such a set of complex topics. As an ugly, neurodivergent man and a child SA survivor, I feel seen. I'm so happy. Thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate that super chat. I really do. So when we have these conversations, we are all coming from very different perspectives, and yet we are not alone. There are millions of people who are going through very similar struggles, and then those millions of people overlap into billions of people, right? So when we have these conversations, there is going to be a balance of meeting people where they are, which is going to be the hardest part. The hardest part is going to be patient with people that are bigoted, period. But not all people have to play the same role in how they meet those people where they are. Every single one of us is playing a different role. When I first came, well, not first, I've been on the internet too long, but at what point in my career, I tried to make a space for incels and men who were struggling with their relationships. And I found that I couldn't handle that group of people. So then I came back and I tried to appeal to people that were struggling with BPD. And then I was like, you know, I can't handle this either. And then I tried to come back until finally I decided that the content I made would have to reflect the audience it would attract. And the audience it would attract would allow me to come to work every day and not overexert myself by doing emotional labor for people that should be seeing a therapist or a professional. Because remember, as much as I sit here and I might speak with this tone, I am not an authority figure in your life. I am not a medical professional. I am not a philosopher in terms of, I'm not a PhD philosophy major, right? Like, I am not a person in a position of power. I am simply a person who's figured out things for her life. And so when you come to me as if I have the answers, as if any of us have the answers, I do have some answers, but be very aware of which answers I have. Okay? I know how to become a joyful, happy, solid person, good person, while living under systems of oppression. I know how to deconstruct and have a good philosophical relationship with self and everything outside of yourself. I can help you with that. If that's your jam, I got tools. Though those tools are only going to be as helpful as like you use them. They're already helpful to me. I use them, but like you have to decide if they fit your life. So there's this guy. So first we have the defenders of men in different categories: the male podcast people, people who uphold patriarchy, people whose whole rhetoric is just to reinforce traditional relationships and standards. Okay, and then we have the Scott Galloways. Okay, we have this guy, Richard Reeves. Okay, he's like everywhere right now. We're gonna talk about him. We have Jordan Peterson, who's sick right now, so he's kind of out of this, season. And then we have maybe somebody that the only person that I would ever think well of is Dr. K. And I understand right now he's going viral, and the women are really upset with Dr. K right now. With peace and love, fine. I'm not going to sit here and defend a man. But I do think, and this is what I feel like I know this, when I was trying to help boys, you do have to talk like them to get them to understand you. So something Dr. K said recently that pissed people off is he said, men are not allowed to be angry. And women were really upset about that. But I know exactly what he's talking about. He's right. Men are not allowed to be angry. But now in your head, you're like, what the fuck? Because you're thinking of this group of men you know about. And I'm thinking, if you take into consideration 8 billion people, I know exactly the category of man that he is talking about. But if you don't know this and you hear him, you're going to think he's some fucking misogynist who's like, men never get to be angry. Men never get to cry. And it's women's fault. But Dr. K would never, ever blame women. But he also can't come out and aggressively say it's patriarchy because it would alienate the men who are coming to him for help. He is the bridge between the patriarchy is good people and the patriarchy is bad people. And he is trying to get men across the bridge, but he's going to look, because he has to, in the same way I had to when I was in the bubble, you have to almost look like you're thinking patriarchy good, almost, right? But it's not quite that. And so I understand, okay? I understand why you think Dr. K is some pipeline into the alt-right. He could be, but he's not intending to. That's just the consequence of helping incels. The consequence of working with deeply misogynistic men is no matter how hard you help them, 90% of them will become alt-right. But do you really think the brown man who practices a non-Christian spiritual practice, okay, who's trying to already contend with so many other white men on the these white men on the internet, like, do you really think that he is exactly the same thing as these white men you're criticizing? Okay. So again, maybe he is to you, but to me, it's so obvious what he's doing. But again, I am not going to fight for him in the comments. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm not going to fight for him in the comments, but I will say this. Okay. He is a doctor. He is a psychologist. Okay. He is educated. He is somebody who deeply cares. But he is still just a man, so he will be flawed, okay? So he can say things that are wrong, and he can say things that are, you know what I mean? So again, stop pedestaling people and expecting them to always say things that are right, because the same women I saw criticizing him said things like, men will always, all men, they are bioessentialists. So even those women who were criticizing him sounded pretty bioessentialist to me. So, you know what I mean? Be careful who you're listening to criticize. Because remember, not all women fighting against patriarchy are liberated out of gender essentialism or bioessentialism, right? So just be careful. Now, let's watch this guy who I do not like, Richard Reeves. I do not like him. Sam, I am. I do not like him.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to get rich extremely quickly. Now, people say it's impossible to get rich quick. Well, I did.
Now, I made my first $1 million at 18 years old.
Ready? Finances for boys.
I developed a blueprint.
If you're a teenager in 2023, becoming a millionaire is simple.
There's something else going on here too, which is the get rich quick thing. Online, there's a bit of a culture around like men need to get wealthy, they need to do it quickly. They don't want to work for like corporate.
Now, fun fact, because you guys know money is one of my special interests. I jumped right into this bubble. I've seen thousands of videos. Any video on this bubble, I've probably watched it. And I will just tell you this right now. I've even dabbled in the bubbles, the get rich quick stuff. And what I've discovered through that process is it goes back to this idea that I've been telling you about yourselves. All art is art, but not all art is good art. All money is money, but not all money is good money. Okay? Men want it quick. They want to go quickly to riches without honing in a skill and a craft. In the same way that women are tricked under capitalism to open an Etsy shop before they perfected their craft. Everybody wants to get quick or rich quick, right? That's why everyone thinks social media is so easy. Oh my God, I'm going to become a YouTuber. It's so easy. Now, the same men that say, man, I wish I was a woman so I could be rich on OnlyFans. You would not believe how many times I say to my partner, I wish I was a man so I could do a finance channel and say the most basic shit and get rich. Because that's how it feels. When I see men say the most basic fucking shit and then boom, 1 million subscribers, I'm like, Jesus, I wish I was a man. I would be so rich if I was a man. But, okay, and this goes into it, I'm not a man in that way. And they're not women in that way. And we're not anything in any way. We are simply just people finding our meaning. So even if I was a man saying mediocre shit with finance, it would probably become stale the way all these content creators do. All these men who start finance channels, they get there really fast and then they fall off after 7 years because it wasn't even a passion. They're not fulfilled. They're not emotionally fulfilled. They are literally making video after video about like, okay, guys, I'm over this channel. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I just feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Because all they were focused on was the money. And I'm saying there's so much more than that. And it is a trick of capitalism. It is a trick of all these bubbles to think that getting rich was the point. And that's why I say money can never be the answer. It can only be a part of the answer. Because look at all these men with all this money and they're so deeply unhappy.
They don't want to climb their way up a labor market. They don't want to start in an entry-level job and work their way up. Not when there are these sort of very shiny objects online, especially that can make you rich quickly. And of course, there are examples online of men who've done that and who've managed to get a lot of wealth very quickly. They are the exception that proves the rule.
When you're in the stage where you're still obsessed over getting rich, it should be the only thing that you think about and the only thing that you put your energy towards.
I also don't believe these men that they're rich because a lot of people, you know, they play this game, right? They play this game of having money. They play this game of having good finances, but they don't. They don't. Okay. And even when they say they do, like, I better see the numbers.
And I worry a lot, actually, that we have overdone the importance of entrepreneurship in recent debates. So we got entrepreneurship, we need more entrepreneurs, and that's how you get out of poverty.
Oh my gosh, Chad said it perfectly. I have a close friend that's debating basically giving up becoming the CEO of his dad's company in a few years to go to work in an oil rig. Now he can make much more money. Or the opposite of that, how many men are quitting their 9-to-5s with their 401ks to become a CEO of a business they don't even know how to run? I cannot tell you how many finance shows I have watched where people literally like, oh, I quit my job to do social media. And I'm like, hello? Oh, I quit my job to start a business. Guys, starting a business, most US businesses literally close within 5 years. What are you doing? Having a successful business is so fucking hard. And also what you bring into the business is not the same thing as you get paid. Okay? Remember that. Remember, what you make on the business is not what you're paying yourself. So all these men that are like, oh, the business brought in $1 million. Okay, but how much of that is yours? Oh, 50K? Yeah, exactly.
If you're a young man, and that is almost certainly not true. And those algorithms and those online platforms just...
And even when it comes to business, when girls start a business, it's like cute and adorable. But when men start a business, it's like, I'm really proud of you. Wow, this is your destiny, bro. Okay? What was that box? I'm not a fan of the brand, but that perfume box, I forgot what it was called. It was a subscription box. The men in that bubble who invested in the company said when the women showed up to pitch this business, no one believed in it. BirtScent, something like that. Nobody believed in it. And they invested and they made so much money off of that. But there's always this inherent doubt that the women know what they're talking about. And that is because of patriarchy and misogyny working together, right? Because you'll say to yourself, but like, how many women are CEOs? We're going to cover that in a second. And if not a lot of women are CEOs, then women must be bad at business. And then they'll say, well, if women really are good at business, they become more CEOs. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Very good at playing into that higher risk appetite among young men especially. And it is a little bit like a fish hook. It's a shiny object kind of in the water and you go, and that's going to make me wealthy, it's going to solve my problem, and you grab it and then you are hooked. In states where you see sports betting online go legal, an increase.
Look at the way men are throwing away their money. Sports betting. They always say women are the reason, like they're in charge of the economy. Women are spending the most money, except not taking into consideration that most of the women spending that money are spending it on diapers and kids' clothing and food and school supplies. Well, men are literally spending it thinking I'm going to get rich fast. I can tell you how many of my brothers, because I got 8 of them, okay, we all had that conversation about crypto, about investing. All of them call me and go, okay, I'm going to get rich quick. Stop. I get it. Stop. Okay. All of us have to go, if you're in this bubble, we all have to go through it's not going to be your first viral video. That's the part of social media that I also thought, well, once my video gets 1 million views, that's it. Guys, I've had multiple million view videos. Never has this channel gotten over 100,000 subscribers. Never has that virality ever turned into money in a bigger way. Like, as much as we think it isn't, because I wasn't running the business at that time as a business. At that time, I was using YouTube more like a diary, which is very old school YouTube of me. But because I was using it like a diary, there was nothing for people to come back to. Had I been at this point, if I got 1 million views now, I think it would be great. I think it would solidify a lot of my career in a big way, right? because now there's something to come back to. There's a ton of videos, a ton of growth, a lot of series. There's like all of this like content I've built up over the last 6 years to give people an idea of what they're signing up for. It would be different. But when those videos came into my life, when I reached those millions of views, nobody knew what they were signing up for. So it didn't lead to subscribers, and it didn't lead, you know what I mean? And this is a part of it. So that's another part of like validation through patriarchy and capitalism, right? I am considered a not successful YouTuber, even though I've been paying my rent with this for 6 years. I have literally been a full-time content creator for 6 years, and I am not considered successful. And now these men are internalizing that as not successful because they want to be like the big guys. I watched a guy on Ramit's finance show net worth of 2.5 million, and he still felt he wasn't successful. So remember every day that I feel very successful and I am diligently working to maintain that success. But God forbid I become the person worth $2.5 million and I still don't feel successful. And that's why men feel so bad under patriarchy, because nothing they do will be good enough. Look at Trump. You think Trump isn't still seeking validation? Nothing will make this man happy, no matter women or money. And that's the point. That's the point.
In bankruptcies, reduction in credit score, and general economic difficulties, especially for young men and especially for the lower income young men. Men are much more likely to become addicted to most things, actually, but especially to things like kind of online gambling.
But it's not because they're men. It's because they're allowed to be reckless under patriarchy and still be considered successful. Women are not allowed to be considered reckless under patriarchy and be considered successful. That's why our body count is used against us and theirs isn't. That's why when we have children out of wedlock, we're baby mamas and held accountable, and the men don't even have to be present fathers and they're still successful. He's a good dad, man. He comes around on occasion. He's always there for my birthdays. You do the absolute bare minimum or less than, and you're given all this credit, right? The same way that when my father and grandfather were catching up, and my grandfather asked, what is everyone doing for work? My dad went down the line of every single one of his boys and completely left out the girls. And I said, hello? What about your girls? Who, by the way, at this point will be the top earners in the family, the top 3 earners in the family probably. At this point will literally be the most stable earners in the family, including my farm brother, of course. He is the most successful out of all of us. But following him will probably be me and my sister at this point. Unless my brothers change trajectories very quickly. There's a chance another brother could catch up. But right now, we are diligently working on, investing, buying houses, getting out of debt, focusing on, further education. Like, there is a plan in place and we're following through. A lot of my brothers they don't know what they want to do. So they're just kind of waiting around. And while they're waiting, we're building. But we're not going to get that social credit. Okay? And that is the patriarchy and then the misogyny that trickles down. These are 2 different things, but they go hand in hand.
And there are all kinds of reasons for that, about the dopamine system, especially among young men, etc., and this kind of high that you get from the reward of kind of a bet paying off, etc. There's a reason why this is predominantly a problem among men, which is men are more vulnerable to that particular kind of risk, that particular kind of addiction.
And by the way, as an example, so XQC is like addicted, right? He gambles on stream and he made a lot of money. He made like $100 million. Ethan Klein, remember what Ethan Klein said? Oh, I wish I could take sponsors for gambling, because but it's so unethical. But then he did it anyways. Okay. I am not a gambler. I've always been very cautious of gambling. I'm not a drinker. I've always been cautious of drinking, my party days, but like I don't think drinking is a part of my identity, right? Gambling is very unsafe. And yet when my mental health was the worst, I was swiping credit cards. Okay. I was in a lot of debt because of my mental health. And yet in all of those years of my mental health being absolute in the shitter, never once did I turn to gambling, because I knew that gambling is an insidious, malicious, disgusting industry that preys on vulnerable people. And the people with the most capital in the world are men. And so a lot of the victims are men. But please pay attention to the fact that like when men get capital, and I'm going to show you an example of this. Yes, they are addicted. And also, yes, they are in denial that they severely need help because they are suffering from that addiction and because patriarchy reinforces it. Take a gamble, take a risk. If you're not willing to risk it all, are you even a man, bro? If you're not willing to put your life on the line, are you even a man, bro? And so under patriarchy, I am not wiser. I was just never told to put my life on the line. So I never did. Right? Well, except for the time that I tried to commit suicide, but that was because I didn't know what my place was in the universe, but then I found a girl, so I'm okay now. Okay?
If we're not careful, these conversations can shut the conversation down with boys and young men rather than opening it up. Sometimes parents sort of react to discovering that their son, for example, is consuming video content from somebody like Andrew Tate, pretty well-known misogynist influencer. It's almost like they're watching hardcore porn. You know, they slam the laptop with the same kind of moral fervor and that's the wrong response. It's a natural response, but it's the wrong response. Instead, you've got to have curiosity. You've got to figure out like, well, why are you interested in this? Let's have that argument. Because one of the things that the most successful reactionary online figures say is nobody will want you to talk about watching my stuff or listening to my stuff. If you even mention to somebody that you're interested in this, watch how they react. You've just proved the point that the reactionary was making. And
I don't even know what parents are actually talking to their kids about Andrew Tate in the first place. That's a big part of the problem. Is are they even aware? Are they really having the conversations? Yes, I agree. They're shutting it down because they're ignoring the fact that it's important. But the first reaction isn't just disgust. It's like, oh, this isn't important.
this is one of those moments where it's hard, but I'm speaking here as a parent as much as a policy wonk, is that you take some deep breaths, you try to be open-minded, and you try to become an ally and a partner to your son as they navigate this difficult online.
But, and again, we have to also adapt and understand what young people are going through and keep tabs on things. And while the parents are doing that, they're also just people on a timeline. So they also need to work on themselves. You need to go to therapy. You need to deconstruct. You need to ask yourself, why is it important for me to be a good man? And what does that even mean?
World, an offline world. So what does non-toxic masculinity look like? Being not toxic is not a hugely aspirational goal for many of us. Like I didn't raise...
But it should. This is why I have changed and pivoted my message to be less bad today. Be a little less bad today. Because the issue in the world is that you think you're automatically good. You're not. You're not automatically bad, but you are influenced by a pretty bad world. So you need to literally, imagine you're being raised in a world where, yes, you're getting healthy water, but also you're getting toxins. And you have to expel the toxins from yourself as well as drink more water.
My sons and say, just think, boys, one day you might not be poisonous. I honestly believe that the way to beat the online world is offline, is in real life. Bye.
Everyone's fucking solution to beat the online internet is offline. Or, hear me out, watch YouTubers together. Bond on content creators you like together. In the same way you would art, music, plays, right?
Having male teachers, male coaches, fathers, uncles, neighbors, etc. Just being a living and breathing version of what it means to be a man.
See, but what does that mean? Because I agree that that would be nice, but what community are you already in? Is everyone else doing the work? Are all of the men being vetted by you? Can you guarantee that every single man you have access to is deconstructing? Because at least on the internet, I can go find them without leaving my house. But in my neighborhood, I'm limited. I'm limited to my neighbors. I'm limited to my biological family, right?
I continue to believe that in the long run, boys, young men will believe their eyes more than their ears. And so if there isn't...
No, that's never been the case. I don't think that's ever been the case. Wait, they'll believe their eyes more than their ears. No, maybe. I don't know. Because if that was the case, leading by example would be enough, but it's not enough. No, that's silly. That's reductive, right? Because like, we know that's not true, because if that was true, then why did my brothers ever look at Andrew Tate if my father was never an Andrew Tate fan? But then maybe he's saying because my father was a conservative and a Trumper, that was enough to think, well, I might as well be an Andrew Tate fan. Sure.
Enough of a sense of what does it mean to be a man in my community, in my home, in my school, etc. If there's a lack of real life...
Chat says, I think he means teaching versus doing. Yeah, but we've already been taught by men. We have been being taught. Right? Like, we are being taught. I think people are discounting the influence they already have, right? I think that's the problem. Like, one of the things I love about my farm brother is that he's trying to break a lot of generational curses. He's not doing it in the healthiest way, but he's doing it healthier than our parents did it. But I can still see the toxicity. And this is the narrative of, at least I'm doing better than my grandparents. At least I'm doing better than my parents. It's good, but it's not the greatest. It's going to lead to its own problem, like its own set of problems. I'm already seeing it. I'm like, uh-oh. But he is avoiding another part of the problem, which is great. But also, he needs to go through the journey himself. He is deciding to be a parent at the same time he's learning to deconstruct. And so we all have to do that. But because of that, his kids, and this is why I say no matter how you show up in the world, you will do evil. And it's because you are not an automatically well-intentioned, educated, fully formed human. You have to become a fully formed human. And while you're busy doing that, you're raising not fully formed people and you're influencing not fully formed people, myself included. There is so much content I take down every day. Someone leaves a comment of a video I made a while ago. I'm like, oh, this video was so bad. Take it down. Because I didn't say what I really wanted to say, or I said it in a way that sounded stupid, or I said something that I didn't even want to say anymore, something I don't believe in anymore, something I said that I was like, oh, I can't believe I used to think that way. So I take it down. Because I can't rely on the audience to be like, oh, Brittany made this video 4 years ago. It's probably out of date. Because people, for some reason, can't fucking do that. Okay? Because I understand why. Because you don't change, so you assume I don't change. I wish I could keep all that old content up if people could go back and say, oh, this is old. But you can't do that because the same people who say, oh, that's my old content, they're still the same person. But they say, oh, but that's my old content. Right? So you don't know what to do when you actually see a person who's changed because you can't trust it, because why would you when 99% of people don't change? I agree with you, right? It's hard to believe that you're the exception, but you're not really the exception because you're special. It was just your journey anyways. So all these men that go, I'll be the exceptional role model. What are the chances that you are the exceptional role model? What are the chances that you are the exceptional male figure? Pretty fucking low.
Men showing what it means to be a man rather than telling you how to be a man, then I think that creates a vacuum which then gets filled by online figures. Well, what shall we do about it?
Okay, pause. That's what I wanted to show you there, to say, like, again, when we have these conversations, okay, about our solutions, I don't think he still gets it. I don't think this man understands the internet. I don't think he gets it. Now, money, let's talk about, wait, are we getting there? Yes, we're moving into finance now. This is the best part of this is the best part of the stream. This is the best part of the stream. I'm so fucking excited. Let's start with money and Marco. Why are Gen Z men turning to the right and women to the far left? Let's go.
Why do people vote populist? Essentially, social scientists have found two reasons. The first reason is economic insecurity, where the economic literature has shown that populism is much more likely to emerge in so-called left-behind regions, such as in Germany's east. In other words, sure, the economy can look good on paper, but if inequality is really high and the economy is not working enough for many people, then yeah, at some point these people will get desperate and elect a populist. This can explain why populism was already so prevalent in Latin America before the 1990s. It can also explain why populism surged in the US and Europe after the great financial crisis. It can explain why left-wing populist parties like Syriza and Five Star surged in Greece and Italy, respectively, during the Euro crisis. It could also explain why Bernie Sanders became so popular with young voters in 2016, but less so in 2020.
Populism in a reductive way is like appealing to that raw part of our humanity that says, I am hurting, I am suffering, do something about it. And like they say, you are suffering. I see you're suffering. I'm going to help you. It's appealing to that part of us that is like, something is happening to me. Because we understand that when people are economically struggling and they feel that feeling and someone offers them a solution, they bite into it. It feels like the answer. It feels like, yes, thank you. Finally, somebody cares about me, even if they don't care about you. Finally, somebody sees that I'm suffering. Because guys, hello, everybody is suffering. So of course it's easy for someone to say, oh, I see that you're suffering. Let me help you. Everybody is suffering.
19, when youth unemployment dropped to an all-time low before COVID hit. But as you can see here, today with Gen Z, it's very different. In Europe today, youth unemployment is actually relatively low. Today's economic insecurity therefore comes from different aspects. Sky-high house prices and a massively increased cost of living in general that is hitting young people especially hard. However, when it comes to far-right populism, economists have found that it thrives under different circumstances than left-wing populism.
Okay, now, he mentioned the housing crisis, right? Okay. Hold on. Chat says, if everyone is suffering, why does does that mean populism is always an effective political tool? Yeah, because it's a shortcut and an easy way to make you feel seen. That's why it's so effective. But you see how you're still unhappy? So I'll give you an insight. We're going to cover this in a second, okay? He brings up the housing crisis. This is what I want you to pay attention to, okay? The housing crisis. What's the narrative around owning a home? I'm never going to own a home, right? That will be true as long as you remain shaken in your philosophical joy. That will remain true as long as you hold on to the attachment of owning that home. That will remain true as long as you keep doing what you're doing. That will remain true as long as you buy into the narrative that your life will always be unfair suffering, right? Now, I say this as somebody who embodied this belief for so long in my life that I was never gonna have a home or own things or do things. And look, I don't own a home right now. But if I keep going the way that I am going, I will own a home one day. And I will never probably make six figures. But as long as I make the income I'm making right now, eventually I will own a home. And so I am doing everything in my power to get ready for that eventually. But math is math and numbers are numbers. I think the dilemma is that if you keep believing that you'll never get ahead as a man, you'll never get ahead as a millennial, you'll never get ahead as a woman, you'll never get ahead as anything, the system then, through populism and everything else, it can absolutely suck the life out of you. And this is why I say we exist in systems, but we don't have to internalize it. The internalization of the system is how subjugation works. It's how it all ends up being what it is. And this isn't to say something like, if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you'll get ahead. It's not to say something like, if people would just save their money. It's not to say something like poverty is self-inflicted. It is not to say anything like that. That's all so ridiculous, right? All of that is just bullshit. And it's bullshit that makes populism work. You see, you poor white people, you're really trying. But you see these brown and black people over here, they're not trying. They're just perpetual victims. You white people, you're really suffering. And it's because of these people over here. Look, men, you know how you're struggling under this patriarchal structural system? It's because not because of capitalism, but because of these women who are going to school. And, you know, it almost rings true because, hey, they are suffering. And yeah, these people seem to be getting ahead and these people seem to be failing, but that's probably because of who they are, right? If you deconstruct and understand what it means to be a person on a planet, are able to recognize that we obviously are these biological creatures having this biological experience in which we have evolved to form systems that are deeply flawed, and the worst of the worst will use it at the expense of and to take advantage of, but also you do not need to internalize these systems as a part of your personality. You do not need to internalize this idea that you will never own a home. But once you've decided to do that, okay, that is that, you know, that weaponized term, the victim mentality. That's not even what I'm talking about because that doesn't even mean anything anymore. But it is a belief that you are powerless in a world, and therefore who is there to save you if you are always powerless no matter what you do? It is the same line of thought that makes men incels. No matter what they do, they will never get ahead because they do not look like a Chad. And I am telling you right now, there is a way ahead. It is an individual effort that works in a community way. It works to impact the collective. But right now, collectively, you could argue that everyone is so deeply suffering and so deeply, you know, it's so real. And yet, it is because the system influences the people and the people reinforce the system. And I'm saying, don't blame yourself, heal yourself. Don't blame the world, heal the world. Don't be angry at the world, be angry for the world, right? So everything I want to give you here in this stream is a tool that says everything sucks. but everything always has sucked. And even though it's bad right now, we are 3 steps forward, 2 steps back species. That is how we have always worked. We go 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so, again, you have to accept that you are a living creature on the planet, and this is what it means to be alive. What means to be alive, it means to ask yourself for 2,000, 5,000 years, what is the meaning of love? I am a philosophy girly. I will forever be asking myself, what is the meaning of love? And it will never, ever be truly solved. It will only be experienced in the most present. And so when we talk about liberation, you first liberate yourself out of the idea that you need to internalize bigotry towards yourself and then others, okay? And then it spreads out. The problem is that we're self-hating. The problem is that we hate ourselves. Incels hate themselves, okay? Misandrists hate themselves. Misandrists meaning TERFs. The only real misandrist in the world is a TERF, okay? And they hate themselves. And I'm saying I don't blame you. You have internalized all of these years of teaching, all of this religious years of teaching, all of these structural systems have influenced you since you were a baby. Before you even came into the world, your mother was influenced, your father was influenced. Before you even came into the world, like what happened to you generations ago, before we even knew your parents were going to come into the world, you were already coming into a world that was so at odds with itself. And yet there's so much beauty to be had in the world. No doubt, right? No doubt are humans so great and so not great, okay? So when we have these conversations about why are Gen Z men going more right and why are Gen Z women going more left, this is simply the place in life you are. This is simply our time in history, right? We were all just little blips on the map of history, and this is just where we are right now. The question is, are we ever going to actually do something different, or are we going to keep repeating the cycles of like, oh, it's not systems, oh, it's this people, oh, it's these people. Stop blaming and start building solutions. The solutions aren't simply that boys should talk to their fathers. It's that fathers should do the work on themselves to be better people for their sons. Because right now, there's this idea in the implication of that sentence that fathers are already good. They're already great the way they are. And I would say none of us are ever good enough in a literal sense, but always good enough in a literal sense. Of course you're good enough, but no one's ever good enough. But no one should strive to be in that cycle of I'm never good enough either. But if we don't work on ourselves, then we can never get better. But then if we always think that we can only ever work on ourselves and we'll never get better, then you won't. Life is tiny contradictions, and you have to find balance within that contradiction, okay? So you might say to yourself, women are being, we live in a matriarchy. Women are going to college. Men are killing themselves. Women are ahead. Women are taking over. Do you remember that TikTok I showed you? I couldn't find it for this stream, but the guy said, 70% of CEOs are women. Do you guys remember that TikTok? Right? Okay. You might believe that, right? You might even see this video and believe it. Let me show you this TikTok. Or maybe you see this video and you don't believe her. I'm going to show you this TikTok. What do you think about this TikTok?
I want to show you the 52 females who are currently the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. They only equate to about 10.4%. However, every single female CEO outperforms their male counterparts. Female CEOs in this group have an average rate of return of 384%, while men's average rate of returns are 261%. These women are outperforming the men by an average of 123%. And some argue that the companies led by these women were previously run by men, and that's the reason for their success. That simply isn't true. Because if you were to measure the performance of these companies only by the time they had female CEOs, they still outperform their male counterparts. Congratulations to these trailblazing women who are debunking the myth that men are better leaders and eating them for breakfast. We salute you. I want to show you
So a few things from that TikTok I noticed already. One, a man might see this and say, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about because, women are everywhere. They're given advantages. We live in our matriarchy. There's no way only 10% of women are CEOs. It's got to be more than that. Well, according to Harvard, It's women are underrepresented in the top management U.S. companies. According to the Catalyst's latest report, women occupied 41 or 8.2% of CEO positions, right? Okay, so we know it's less than or about 10% of women are CEOs. But then the question is, why do we want to be a CEO? So then the question is like, do I want to be CEO? And no, this is not an AI voice. This is just her voice, okay? But like, do we want to be a CEO? And then that's the question is like, why do women even want to be CEOs? Because under patriarchy, their validation as being a good woman is performing in competition with the man and being better than the man. This goes back to what I said in my podcast about older women dating younger men. There is a conditioning of, well, if men get to date younger women, why can't women date younger men? The goal is not to be more like men, guys. The goal is to deconstruct the patriarchal system that put men in this position of thinking that their job was to date women who were, quote, freshly 18. You are not, deconstructing or dismantling the patriarchy or destroying, patriarchy by dating newly, freshly 18 men. You are not dismantling the patriarchy by becoming a CEO. Okay? Hillary Clinton did very little to tackle patriarchy, but she did a lot for girl bosses everywhere. But she did very little, to challenge patriarchy. And so again, like, depending on your goal as a woman, is it about showing up better, equal to the men? Or is it about humanizing our experience as people and realizing that none of this came out of none of it exists in a vacuum? We are products of our past. Okay, so this is are you ready? Oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so excited to cover this with you. Okay. One of my favorite finance channels right now, I don't love the way he titled it. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's the name of his book. This is Rabit. I think that's how you say his name. You know me, I don't hear sounds very well, but he's an Indian finance advice guy, and he's very successful, and I really like his stuff. And only this week did I decide I really liked him because I found out he's anti-Trump. He speaks out against ICE. He speaks up for LGBTQI people, and he often talks about gender differences in relationships in a way that is good, and he's constantly promoting therapy. And so, okay, like, I like that. Those are all good things I'd like to hear. I'm not vouching for him. I don't know this man, okay? But I want to show you, and I want to go down this journey of how patriarchy influences every part of our life. Okay, every part of our life is influenced by systems, just like white supremacy, which we'll talk about tomorrow with racism. White supremacy impacts every part of our life. Patriarchy impacts every part of our life. Capitalism impacts every part of our life. This is what systems are. So when people say we live under misandry as a system, misandry is not impacting every part of your life. Okay, that's not how that works. Independent people or groups of people can be misandrists, like TERFs are misandrists. But generally speaking, a woman who is simply frustrated with engaging, like I did in the beginning of stream, women who have been rejected by groups of men, who have been discounted because they're women, who go and start their own groups that are women only, aren't misandrists. They're reacting to the fact that you didn't engage or invite them in, right? One thing I've noticed with Rabit's work is a lot of the dynamics between the genders, because he works with a lot of heterosexual couples, and he mentions how that makes a difference. Not on purpose, it's just how the makeup has been so far. When he engages with these couples, believe it or not, the women are better with money, and not because they're good with money, they take on the burden and the stress of the money. This is so interesting to me because in my household, which was, quote, traditional, my father made the money and my mother controlled the money. Like, not controlled. She budgeted the books. They did it together as a team, but it was my mother's job. And here was my mother's logic. I'm the one buying the diapers. I'm the one buying the food. I'm the one buying everything. So why shouldn't I be the one who knows where all this money is going to? Right? So that makes sense. It makes sense that even under patriarchy, men are held as these great leaders who control the assets, who make the capital. And it makes sense why women would carry that burden. But also, the men in some of these dynamics I'm going to show you, even though the women are either making more money or doing the finances, they don't respect the women they're married to because they are women. Let me show you. I'll give you examples. Here's the first couple I want you to see, okay? It's titled, in quotations, "She racked up $50K of debt. Why should I trust her with money?" Okay, we're going to go to a segment where that comes up. Are you ready? Here's the wife. She's telling Rabit and Rabit and the story about how his book influenced her and how it really motivated her. And here's that story.
I read your book and I was on maternity leave, and I took the big Post-its that go on the wall, and I was on the ground writing all the plan out for us, and then I put it up on the wall.
That man they just showed is her husband.
Oh, when the kid was napping, and like we went through it.
So why did you bring that up? I'm curious.
That's Rabit.
Well, because that was part of what prompted this conversation with Dave was...
Wait, now I'm doubting myself. Is it Ramit or Rabit? Oh my God, now I'm doubting myself. It's Ramit. It's Ramit. I knew it. Ramit.
I had this plan.
See, let me just tell you this. You don't put your name in the channel title, guys. It's going to be hard for me to remember your name. That's how I feel. That's why my name is Brittany Simon.
And part of that plan was that we needed to automate the savings account.
And when you were doing this massive plan on the floor, did you bring Dave into that planning session?
I wrote it all down and then put it up on the wall, and we looked at it together after.
And what was that like when you looked at it together?
I thought I was back in math class and like just was being taught a lesson.
Mm-hmm. Do you like being taught about those money things you saw on the wall?
It was off-putting at first. Mm-hmm. I guess my hang-up at the time was, why is Emma teaching me this? She's not some financial expert.
Oh, wow. But would you admit that you're not a financial expert yourself?
Yeah, absolutely I'm not. And obviously she's my wife, and I know it's all within good intentions, but I know she's not great with money either. But my thought process when I first saw the whole thing laid out was, I think I want to hear this from someone else.
And did you find somebody else to teach you about money?
No.
Okay. Oh, the way I spit out my coffee when I heard him say that. And what was the subtle implication of, I want to hear this from someone else? I want to hear this from a man. I guarantee you, the subtle messaging underneath that is not only do I want to hear from an expert, but it better be a man expert.
It's not really fair, right? She's like doing some work. Maybe she didn't even get everything right, but she put an effort into it during maternity leave. She put together this plan, and your initial reaction was, why is she teaching me this? We need an expert who, by the way, I'm not going to go and find.
Right. That's also not what I did. I sat there, I listened. We were conjuring up a plan.
I know she made a plan. Did you believe it, like deep down?
It had me worried. At the time, I'm still already kind of going paycheck to paycheck a little bit, and it's, oh man, now I got to put more money here, and she wants 5 different accounts, and I have to separate everything, and it just seemed like a lot.
Did you tell her that?
I don't remember.
I don't know if he said the words, but I know Dave very well, and I got the feeling. I knew coming away from that doing all of that was going to be a lot, and he was uncomfortable with it.
So what do we do when we are presented with this massive plan that our partner put together without really talking to us about it? It's going to require a lot of work. I don't necessarily have the confidence in my partner. Realistically, do we think that plan is going to get executed or not?
No.
Emma says no. Dave?
No, because it didn't.
Exactly. What are you observing about this meeting with the big thing on the wall?
I think it encapsulates a lot of the conversations, big or small, that we have. I'm talking, Dave is listening, going along, but not believing and being like, I don't trust that you know what you're talking about. So you can say whatever you want and I will say yes. But he doesn't really believe in what I'm saying.
Dave, what are you noticing about this example with the big thing on the wall?
Obviously, I could see Emma's excited about it. You know, I was certainly more than willing to listen. But
so the big thing on the wall, just a reminder, is a poster she created, a little like, you know, what we should do, right? She got her arts and crafts out. She made a plan and she excitedly wanted to show it to him. And he was just thinking in the back of his head, like, okay, he was humoring her.
Emma's right about me. I do have internal feelings that I probably don't agree with her at the time. Well, I don't remember exactly how the whole conversation and the presentation went, but
hold on, what's that? Why the laugh, Emma?
I said it wasn't a presentation.
It sounds like to Dave it was. He sat down like a student and you stood up like a teacher. I don't think this is funny, actually. You said it right. This is a great microcosm of your relationship with money. I don't think it's funny when one partner is skeptical of another. I actually think it's one of the most soul-crushing dynamics that exists in a relationship. I don't think it's funny to indulge your partner and let them talk, thinking in your head, this plan isn't really going to happen. I don't think it's funny to question your partner's credibility, which may or may not be good, but then to offer no solutions yourself. I think it's telling. I think there's a lot of things we can do with this. I think it's really candid and honest of you both to share it, and I appreciate it. But I don't think it's funny. What do you both think?
I mean, I think what you just said is very insightful and a way that Dave and I probably have never looked at that situation.
Okay. What I've noticed with all these couples he's interviewed, and look, Ramit is the antithesis to Caleb Hammer. So I don't like Caleb Hammer. You know, I tried in the beginning years ago. We were very empathetic to Caleb. We kind of liked him. And then we were like, honestly, bro, I'm over Caleb. He's dehumanizing. He's gross. Ramit has even criticized Caleb a lot in the past because he thinks yelling at people for being poor makes no sense. That people shouldn't be yelled at for making bad financial decisions. They should be helped. But he does lecture with that very like older brother tone or father tone or whatever you want to call it. He does say, because a lot of these couples, what they do is they hide behind laughter. They cope with jokes. They downplay how serious this is. Kind of like the girls who post their husbands on the internet being horrible and they go, guys, you just don't get him like I get him. But what we are getting is there's a fundamental issue in your marriage. You don't always have to divorce these men, but you certainly maybe wouldn't have married them if you knew better. So you have to decide what to do moving forward because it's serious. Money is so serious. Okay, it is the most serious thing you will ever do with somebody. And I'm going to show you one of my favorite couples Ramit ever interviewed. And I'll tell you exactly the guy I dated in my 20s. I'm going to show you. I watched one of his videos. I'm going to show you after this segment exactly the guy I dated in my 20s and why I'm so grateful every day to myself for never sharing money with this man. And I'm so grateful every day that the person I share money with now is on the same page as me, that we respect each other, that we value each other. And first and foremost, and guys, I cannot tell you how important this is. He really thinks I'm smart. He genuinely 100% thinks I'm a very smart person. And I cannot tell you how much respect comes with that. Looking at your partner and saying like, fuck, I married a smart ass girl. And I'm like, all right, damn, I married a smart ass girl. You know what I mean? Like that is so important to look at your partner and know that they are smart and there's data to back that up. Because the moment a man looks at you, especially as a woman, AMAB or not, gender fluid or not, the moment he's raised as a guy in the world and he looks at a woman and thinks, oh God, is she an idiot because she's a girl? That misogyny is going to erode at your marriage. It's going to erode at your consciousness. So you have to marry a person who's deconstructed those things. It's so important, okay?
What part of it was new to you?
The skeptical part and how it just goes deeper than just talking about money, right? It's how we relate to each other. It's how we respect each other.
The idea that one person needs convincing.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, why do you need to be convinced? Do you know about money?
No.
So then technically, shouldn't you just go along with whatever Emma says?
Not all the time, because I know Emma has not a good track record with money. Maybe scared me at the time. How do I know if this plan's going to work? I've kind of seen how you've dealt with money in the past. I see how you spend it. I'm a little hesitant to believe this. And I think that's a fair thing to say.
Okay. Another approach might be, hey, I don't really know if Emma knows what she's talking about. I better learn this stuff. Because then I can understand what she's saying and maybe ask her some questions.
That's true.
You didn't do that, right?
No.
Passenger. What do y'all think about this dynamic? Is it good or bad?
Not great.
Okay. Is it going to get you where you want to go together?
No.
Hell no. It's like you two are in a boat. You don't even know where your destination is. One of you's not particularly good at boating. You capsized it a few times already, but you're the one who's like, we're going east. And then the other one's like, what the east? I don't even know if you know what east is. I'm going to stick my oar in the water and I'm going to wait until you show me true north. I'm really stretching my knowledge of nautical terms here. Okay, please, let's end this metaphor. But you're not getting anywhere with one person and their oar in the water and the other's like talking furiously and rowing this and rowing that direction. Can't get anywhere. And the worst part is, you're not even having fun doing it. You're all just feeling anxious and skeptical. The answer is not to just wait. It's to change something big. You know what? I'm cutting in.
So what he does is he then pivots to commentary in between and listen to what he says.
Quickly, because looking back, I wish that I had approached this part of the conversation differently. Dave's skepticism about Emma's relationship with money is actually really hard to hear. And yes, she has struggled with credit card debt. But using that as an excuse to dismiss all of her efforts with the family finances does not seem fair. It also doesn't seem like a good strategy because...
Wait, pause. Chad said it's interesting that the couples are in different cameras. He changed that. He used to have them in the same room, but they noticed that people would talk about their finances differently because the influence of having the person next to them. So they asked them to separate. And now the couples are separated. And I'm like, see, that's the kind of shit that makes the biggest difference. That is the kind of stuff that makes a big difference when communicating. Do I feel safe enough with the energy in the room? Do I feel good to voice my opinion? And so that's why that is the way it is.
If you are constantly second guessing someone else, that's not going to get them to rise up and to become confident and competent. And this skepticism is something that a lot of people, particularly women, face. You know, whether it be mothers under constant pressure to prove themselves, whether it's going to work and somebody questioning them, making them feel like they have to justify their mere existence, or why would you think that, when the same questions are often not asked about other people. The feeling of being unfairly questioned, of someone being skeptical of you for merely existing, is one of the worst feelings on earth. And in a way, I think it's especially gendered. I don't think men experience this, of being questioned for one thing or another all the time. If anything, if I had to really stretch it, maybe we take a man who's not assertive and we call him weak. Can you imagine what it's like for the guys listening? If I was like, why don't you just be more assertive? What's the problem? Why can't you do it? Just be more, just speak up. And they're like, I don't act like you. I'm not you. Well, why don't you just do it? That feeling is horrible. Now imagine that happens to you in so many different parts of life. I wish that I had brought this topic up right here, because this skepticism is toxic. What I would have asked Dave would have been something like, what would it take for you to trust her? Because once you get caught in this, I don't trust my partner narrative, it's really hard to break free.
Bro.
I would like to.
Okay. Now, great video, right? Okay. And if you guys want, I'll just link this particular video in chat. You guys can check out his channel if you want. But this is the kind of messaging that a lot of the finance bros aren't getting, because patriarchy doesn't think this is power. So I'm not a big fan of capitalism, but the reason I like Ramit's work is that he seems to take into consideration America's capitalistic system and how it's failing people. He often speaks out against like anti-vaxxers and against the Trump administration, and he addresses gender differences, and he even talks about heterosexual differences. So, okay, we like this. Now, this video, okay, we have a couple here, okay? Both educated, we're gonna find that out right now. Both living with this man's mother, and both put their mother in a financial hole because they can't, quote, get their shit together. And when they had opportunities, when they had money, they spent it. They weren't focused, and they went and made a child. Okay.
Angela, what about you at that time?
I had just graduated law school, and I worked for a little bit and then had an issue with the person I was working with and didn't work anymore. And so we were both at home.
Hold on, this is very fascinating. So, Angela, you have a law degree?
In Colombia.
In Colombia. And does that transfer at all to the United States or no?
I would have to basically go to school all over again, pretty much.
All right. And then, David, you have an engineering degree?
Yeah, I have a mechanical engineering degree.
Okay. I did not expect this. All right. This is quite interesting, don't you think?
No, I don't.
You don't think it's interesting to have a mechanical engineering degree and be living with your mom, who is now in $90,000 of credit card debt from supporting you?
I can make more in car sales, which...
Oh, you can make more in car sales, but you're not? His mother, who was financially stable and set, went $90K into debt to bail these people out. And they're not even thinking about paying her back. Ramit had to say, are you planning on paying your mom back? And they go, oh, I didn't even think about that. And Ramit's like, you didn't think about paying your retired mother back? What?
I mean, starting off in engineering, I was $55,000, $60,000. Like,
what about if you had stayed with it? What would you be making now?
Maybe 90,000.
All right. You know your career better than I do, so I respect that. I'll tell you why I'm surprised.
I like how he gets defensive and he goes, well, I could be using my degree to make 90K, but I'm a car salesman now. And yet he's in all this debt. So this new career that you claim to have, what are you doing with it, right?
Here I am talking to a couple that has been in waves of debt, does not pay rent. I just found out your
And they don't pay rent.
Mom is in serious financial trouble, especially as an older person. With that amount of debt, it's like very difficult. There's no easy answers for that. Then I find out I have a lawyer and a mechanical engineer, at least trained, that I'm speaking to. So I'm like quite taken aback.
It's not that I didn't try to find work in mechanical engineering, but being out of it for 3 years, I came back and it seemed like all I could get was sales positions.
Yeah. Angela, can you tell me about your childhood? What do you remember your family saying about money when you were young?
It was okay. Now, what Ramit does is he always asks, what was your childhood like? Because again, this stream is about patriarchy and misogyny, but it seeps into every part of your life. How your parents talk about money is also gendered. And if you grew up in a house that in any way was influenced, and it will have been, from patriarchy, you will then internalize that regardless of your gender, and it will impact your performance. Okay, he is always promoting therapy, but he's not a therapist. But he knows that your relationship with money, it started generations ago. Honestly, the reason I was a late bloomer with money is so correlated to my parents. And now my relationship with getting on track with money is related in a desire to break those generational curses, and I'm doing great. I am really seeing the differences, guys. It's little. It's a slow and steady pace, but it's real. So I understand that the rest of the world, and I will even say, like, it's so hard to buy a house, and it is very hard to buy a house right now. But I do believe it won't always be hard to buy a house. As long as I am adapting and moving forward and being very serious, what am I doing right now for future Brittany to get ahead? What am I doing right now so when future Brittany is ready, she can do something? You know that meme where you're like, it's a person standing outside of a window and you're like, no. And it's like my 5-year-old self playing Nintendo instead of investing in the stock market, or my 5-year-old self playing Nintendo instead of buying a house in 2008. Okay? That's who you want to be. You want to be the person who in hindsight says, man, I really wish I really wish I had money when the crash happened. Or I really wish I had money when the opportunity came up. Or I really wish I had money. And the issue is, like, if I go back and look at my life, had my mental health been better, had so many things been better, I would have had that money. Not in 2008, because I just graduated high school in 2007. But, I would have had money at one point in my life to have been prepared. My favorite example is when I lived in Seattle, and right before everything got crazy, I had been making enough money over the years that had I been saving, even on $20K, $50K a year, if I had been saving, I could have bought a house at the time. But I wasn't prepared. I wasn't. And it's not my fault. It's my responsibility to make sure I'm not there again the next time that opportunity comes around. Because again, it's also not about rushing. So the point isn't to buy a house. The point is to be financially stable enough that if the opportunity comes up, we can if we want to. And this is a journey we've decided to take because we know at the end of the day, math is math. It really is math, guys. I know it sounds like it isn't, but it literally is. And that is really reassuring to me, that no matter how the world is working, math is math. And that is wonderful. No matter how the world is melting around, philosophy is philosophy. No matter how horrible the world is going, me is me. Okay? So when we have these conversations, I am not going to lose hope, but I understand why everybody else is. It's really hard to maintain stability in a world that's falling down around you. And it is. It's really, really hard right now. It's so hard. So I'm going to work to not make it harder on myself. If I'm spending all of this time deconstructing patriarchy because I know in which ways it is crushing my soul and crushing the people around me, why wouldn't I do that with capitalism? Why wouldn't I do that with every facet of my life? Again, we want to be whole human beings. We want to have a good relationship with our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, our financial health, and we want to know who we are in the story. And I don't want to be any of these fucking couples. Every time I watch these couples who, by the way, some of them are making $200,000, $300,000 a year, they are shocked at how much money they're making. They're like, wait, how much money am I making? Wait, how did I do this? How do I not have any money after the end of things? Like, how do I not have any money? And I'm sitting here like, girl, you are literally making so much money. And that's why I say making money isn't enough. You have to know what to do with it. You have to know not to keep spending. You have to live within budget, right? So again, when you look at the world and you see the world is suffering, like, money is the same way I look at men. And I say, the reason you're not going to college is not because women won't let you. It's because you decided it wasn't for you and it would never work for you. And I'm saying, go to college. When I look at the world and I see that, like, XYZ is like, do the thing that other people aren't doing if what they're doing isn't working. But also, just because you're the exception doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. But you're also not the exception the way you think you are. The goal isn't to be rich. The goal is to have a healthy and philosophically rich lifestyle and relationship with self. And that often will include money. My physical health, my financial health improved immensely when my mental health did. And when my philosophical health did, my spiritual health. So philosophical health, spiritual health, same thing. Okay. When those two things improved, these two things improved because they all relate to each other. So if you have a household with a man who doesn't believe his wife is smart enough to do money, And that woman is doing everything in her both. Chelsea Fagan talks about this. Chelsea Fagan is literally a financial, she runs a financial channel, The Financial Diet. Her whole industry is finance. And she said when families get together, her family gets together, they won't ask her financial advice. They ask the men. She said even in her own family structure, the in-laws, the son-in-laws, the whatever, the men in the family, they don't talk to her about money, even though it's her whole ass job. And that's the point. Now, look at this next couple, okay? Here's this next couple. This is very similar to the dynamic I had in my 20s with that same guy I told you about who couldn't hold down a job. He couldn't go to school. He was definitely suffering from something, but also introspection. He was obviously like ADHD or something, but also would not introspect to save his life. He just could not fucking do it. And he demanded 50% of ownership of my YouTube channel. This same YouTube channel where I make a living and pay my rent. At that time, when I was working 2 jobs, working 20 hours a day, barely sleeping 4 to 5 hours, literally grueling day in and day out, he had the audacity to say, I will help you with your YouTube channel if you put my name on the channel and give me 50%. And I said, you have got to be the craziest person I have ever met. And this is what happens exactly with this guy here. Here we go.
What does that mean, hoarded?
It's being kept and nothing's happened with it.
Mid-20s, girl is 30, okay, or 29. He's 26, I think, 25. He is struggling. Can't maintain job, has ADHD, has a gambling addiction. He literally has lied to her, kept things secret from her. She is stable, a dentist, has a savings, completely educated, and deeply invested in making this relationship work. Girl, run, my girl. Okay, check this out. He says she is hoarding her money. She's hoarding it from him.
As much as one can collect, they're keeping it.
Oh, that's quite revealing. So is money in savings being hoarded?
I don't think so. I think money in savings, there's a goal for that.
Okay. Taylor says no. Hayden, what do you say?
Well, I think if we were saving all of the money, sure. But I mean, I think you have like checking accounts, right, that have tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Not right now. No, I do not.
Okay.
I put that there in order to then place it somewhere else. There is a goal for that.
Gotcha.
What's the difference between savings and hoarding? Or is there not a difference, Hayden?
I think if she has a plan for said money, then that's fair. I don't buy, like, okay, she has $50,000 or something like that in a wedding fund. I don't buy that she plans to spend $50K on a wedding, right? Go ahead.
Hold on, Taylor. I want to hear what Hayden has to say.
Also, because we talked about it before, she doesn't plan to spend $50,000 on a wedding. So in my head, it's like, why do you have all of that money if you don't plan to use it for that?
Hayden, if she says she's not going to spend 50K on a wedding, but she has 50K in a wedding fund, why might she do that?
I think with the emergency buffer being in like all of these accounts, like she has more in these accounts than she's actually wanting to use for these things. That's why I would call it hoarding and she would call it just being careful.
And in your view, how much should she have for a wedding fund?
Oh, I wouldn't want to spend $50,000 on a wedding. So I'm closer to like half of that, maybe.
So she should have 25K in a wedding fund. What should she do with the rest of the money?
That 25,000, I mean, probably invest, right? Or put it somewhere else, have another goal.
And out of curiosity, how much of that type of thinking do you do with your own money?
I don't do any of that. I'm very opposite. Money comes in and it goes right out.
Taylor, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I was just like, you ate with that. You ate with that, sir.
According to the conscious spending plan that you both submitted to me, Hayden, you have $1,070 in savings.
Yeah, I got another 1,000 in investments as well.
This is patriarchy. That mediocre and failing men can look at a woman with 50K in savings and say, you are stupid with your money. That a man who cannot maintain work can look at a woman who got educated and has a stable life and is literally paying his rent and can literally have the audacity to say, I am better with money than you, even though I literally have none to speak on. This is patriarchy. This is misogyny. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. And he has the audacity, I think it's later in this stream, I don't think it's right here, where he says in his ideal world, they would combine money. And this is why I say to you, I have never combined money with anybody for a good reason. Even though I lived with partners, even though I swore I would marry them, until there was a ring on my finger and I knew for sure this was my high compatibility partner, I did not share money with people. I did pay their rent. I did do what she did. I did pay rent. I paid bills. I helped contribute. They maybe paid a phone bill or something, right? They maybe did that kind of stuff. But I paid the rent because God knows it wasn't going to get paid otherwise. You know what I mean? Wasn't going to get paid otherwise, right? So I made sure, because whether or not I liked it, I still needed a place to sleep. Okay. And I took pity on those men I was dating, because I kept thinking they are suffering. That's what she's doing. She's like, he does have ADHD. He does have an addiction. He has a gambling problem. Yeah. Like, I feel bad for him. Maybe if I get him intervention, maybe if we continue therapy. Now he's in therapy, she's in therapy, and they do couples therapy. Why isn't it working? Because he isn't introspecting. He isn't actually embodying a value system that is going to get him to the next step. And I pray to God she reads the comment section on this video, because every single person was telling her, please run. Please run away from this man. You are not married. You do not have kids. Please run away from this man. Okay?
And then when it comes to just like money on me, it's about another $1,000.
You have $1,000 on you right now?
Between like cash and checking, and yeah.
Like where? Like, is it in your pocket right now? Can you show me?
No, it's in my bank account, and I have some cash. It might be like, oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Wait, show me what's in there. We don't usually show cash on this show. Just show me what's in there.
There's probably, I think, like $180 in
So
there.
first of all, this is interesting. Taylor is pulling out like a portfolio. Hold that up to the camera. Hold that up. Okay, what in the hell? So, hold on. Slow down. Go back. So this is like a cash wallet. I haven't seen one of these in a long time. There's laminated plastic, and they have money, and it says gas, and they literally have money. They're doing the envelope system. Okay, so that's gas. Let's go to the next one. They have one called bills. It's a bit of a vague description, but okay. What's next? They have one called sinking fund. Well done. Looks like there's a $10, or there's nothing in there. Okay, there's nothing in there. Next up, they have school. There's a $10 bill in there. Maybe, and a 5. Okay. Maybe there's more. I can't really tell. Moving along, savings has nothing in it. Okay.
This is not hers, y'all. This is his. The girl has $50K in savings. This is not her little notebook. This is his. Okay. This is her. This is not hers. She is so organized. All her money is investments. This girl's a grown up. Okay. This is his.
DG night. What's that?
Date night.
Oh, date night. Oh, date night. Okay, all right, date night. That has 0 in it. All right.
This is the equivalent of your kid putting together arts and crafts of like a fake dinner and being like, look, I cooked dinner. Cute, honey. Okay. Now, this method can work for a lot of people, but he's not actually doing the method, is he? He's pretending to do the method. Okay.
Next. Therapy has $100 in it. Okay. And maybe more. I can't tell, but keep going. Real estate has 0. Okay. Roth IRA has nothing. Okay. And we're at the end. Wow. Okay. First of all, I got to say, I love the organization system. The envelopes.
Ramit is very, very positive and optimistic, which is why I like him, because he doesn't want to talk down on people, but he gives people like, you know, but he doesn't tell people to break up. He tells people to get serious.
System is quite effective for people who are not making a lot of money and need to be extremely diligent. It's also good for people who have historically been irresponsible with their money, because it is a very clear black and white strategy. When the money runs out,
it works if you're actually utilizing the system.
That's it.
Which, by the way, just like anything else, guys, living within your means works if you live within your means. As a girly who for the first time in my life is truly living within my means, hey guys, it works. Hey, who knew? Yeah, it really works if you use it, if you actually do the thing.
To have to literally and figuratively lift it from another envelope and put it in this envelope, you kind of realize like, oh, why am I withdrawing my retirement money to, go to Cheesecake Factory? That doesn't quite make sense. Who came up with that system?
Taylor did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Taylor found it on TikTok and then presented it to me and was like, hey.
Taylor didn't find that in my book. I also referenced that in I Will Teach You to Be Rich, but we'll leave that for another day. Okay, Taylor, on your application, you wrote, quote, I think we're hesitant to get engaged because of different money philosophies.
Here we
Taylor,
go.
Let's go to you. What are your philosophies around money?
I feel like money is power. When you have money, you're more likely to not only just do the things you want, but first of all, stay alive. It's a safety thing to make sure that you're always taking care of your family, your spouse, your children, whoever is always taken care of, in hopes that like you never have the rug pulled under you.
What do you say, Hayden?
My philosophy with money is that it doesn't really have value. I know that's
The woman thinking about the community, the man thinking it not at all. The audacity of this man to show up on this interview.
Not true. Philosophy with money is that it doesn't really have value. I know that's not true. I'm just kind of letting you know how my brain works. Like, money is only here so that you can pay for things that do matter, like experiences, things like that.
Okay, so when you say money doesn't have value, are you really saying I like to live for today and I don't really care about investing or saving for tomorrow?
Yeah. Oh, and you guys are right. It even was worse. She made him the thing and he still couldn't utilize it correctly. That's even worse. That she was like, hey, I found this thing for you. I did the research for you. Another part of dating a sort of a dreamer is they dream and you try to make their dream come true and then they fail to make the dream happen. I was living with a dreamer who talked every day about all these amazing things he would do. And if he just had the tools, and then I would get him the tools and nothing would happen. Because most of the satisfaction is just from the dreaming.
Taylor, what do you hear from Hayden?
I hear that I don't value the things that money could provide. I don't see money as safety. I don't need safety. I'm worried about right now, and whatever happens later, whatever.
I think she's right in all of that. I think I might go a little bit deeper than that. I think that our philosophies come from our own personal traumas. And I think the way that we reconcile that is through therapy, self-reflection.
Using all the buzzwords he learned in therapy.
Practice, stuff like that. We are a couple and we're one, but it's much more individual, like I said, trauma that I think we both need to work out. Yeah.
Do you hear the difference in how they talk about money? For Taylor, money means safety, control, power. She sees money as a tool for stability and control. For Hayden, it's different. He says money has, quote, no value. Those are his exact words. Hayden sees money as a ticket to fun and freedom. Now, the good news is you can actually have a healthy, happy.
Hold on, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Relationship, even if both of you see money differently. But you do have to find some kind of shared, meaningful vision. What really stands out to me also is when Hayden says Taylor hoards money. That word choice is revealing. Hayden himself doesn't really know much about money, but when he sees Taylor handling it, he calls it hoarding. I think that Hayden is consciously or unconsciously demonizing Taylor's money management so that he doesn't have to take a look in the mirror at his own finances.
Amen.
And if you know somebody who's in a relationship where one person handles all the money and the other one avoids it, send them this episode. It might be the start of a conversation they've been.
Okay, now I'm going to skip to this section here in the story. Okay, so I skipped.
So I got into gambling when I was about 18 years old.
Okay, what happened?
I got into it really bad. Definitely became a habit, an addiction, to the point where I was just, again, and someone who doesn't value money, right? It's not a great addiction to have, because I was just blowing all of it until I got that hit, that win, that big euphoric feeling. So when me and Taylor first moved in together and I had money from the house that I sold, I blew all of it, and not a lot of time.
How much time?
4 or 5 months.
Wow. How much money are we talking about?
Like $35,000.
Wow.
Right now, if you look at the news.
Bro, right? Okay, hold on. I'm skipping this ad. Okay, hold on. This is his ad section. Okay.
Meetfabric.com/Ramit.
It got to the point to where my money got low. I took out a personal loan at like a 20-something % just to continue the lie. With addiction, there's lies, gaslighting, all of the things.
I'm going to say something that is very... Okay, so here's what happens. So patriarchy sets up a system that lets men internalize that simply being a man makes them stronger, better, faster than women, therefore better. Then they start to believe that women are less than them, misogyny, and they start to think that even in a situation like this where he is literally failing at life and she is so much more successful than him, that he is somewhat smarter and better than her, right? On top of that, you've got an ADHD guy. Neurodivergency is very interesting. There's a lot of reasoning why the ADHD might cause a lot of these issues. And yet, without the introspection, he will also learn to weaponize this to remain like this. So he keeps saying, it's an addiction. It's an addiction. I've got a problem. Then, okay, what are you going to do about it? Now, he says he's doing all the things, right? He's in a program. He's going to therapy. He's doing all the stuff. But listen to the way he talks about everything around the addiction. Entitlement. I'm smarter than her. I'm better than her. If she loved me, she would pay my bills. So his philosophy isn't even well-intentioned. So the issue here isn't just that he has an addiction. It's that he has a belief about what it means to be a person that entitles him to her money because they are dating when she's already paying the bills. So I think they already covered it. Okay, so she's paying the majority of rent, but he's paying like $100 towards it. And Ramit said, why'd you guys come up with that number? And it was like from the therapist. The therapist suggested that he should feel invested in their life, so he should put $100 towards rent. He didn't even have the ability on his own to be invested in their life. He needed a therapist to say, okay, can you do $100? Well, this girl was doing everything else. And I'm saying whatever that is, I would call it introspection, extrospection, and a sense of his philosophy on life is bad. He has a bad relationship with his philosophical joy. It's making him philosophically evil. He doesn't even, his right and wrong compass allows him to take advantage of his partner, which is what my former partner would do. I would say, like, why are you able to do this to me, to our relationship? Why are you ethically, morally not feeling bad about this? I do feel bad. I do feel bad. You think I don't feel bad? You think I don't feel bad? You won't respect me unless I make more money than you, which is what he used to tell me. And I used to say, I don't care if you make more money than me. But what gives you the right to treat our house this way, to treat me this way, to treat our finances this way? I don't understand. And it was because they have no value. They have no values to build the foundation of morals and ethics on, right? When my partner and I, my married partner and I, anytime we have a discussion about like a division of labor, and if one of us is even slightly feeling, even if I'm for a split second feeling like, hey, like this needs to get done. When is it going to get done? Let's say I feel that 1%. I can go to my partner and say, hey, I feel 1% of worry. That might escalate to 10% very quickly. If I go to make my meal for today and my pot isn't clean, can you please make sure the pot is clean? And he can say, why are you feeling anxious today? And I'll say, I just feel so much pressure. Like I didn't get enough sleep and I have so much work to do. And if I come to the kitchen and the dishes aren't done, then I'm going to feel like, oh my God, overwhelmed. Can you please help me? And he'll say, yeah, I got you. I'll do it right now. And that is helpful because he has ADHD. If I do not sometimes tell him, hey, the dishes need to get done for me, he will space on the dishes in the same way that I will space on the let's say, I don't know, calling the IRS or something for something like, oh shit, I forgot to call the IRS. I have to do that because like I need it in front of me as well. But instead of weaponizing the ADHD or our spaciness or our time blindness, we reassure each other, we let each other know where we're at, and then we get it done. And we always say to each other, the way to be fair and equitable in this relationship is to be loving and considerate and compassionate. And we signed up for a marriage that was compassionate. I understand you don't need the dishes right now, so you have to make sure to do them for me. I don't mind that you have to do them for me. See, in the past, I used to think I need you to do them for you. But I don't care at this point because I understand what it is like to be a person who doesn't like to do laundry. And if it's up to me, my laundry is going to stay in a basket. I haven't done laundry in like 3 years, by the way. He does all the laundry. But if I was in charge of laundry, I'm not going to lie that there would be probably a lot of clean clothes and a lot of baskets, which is why I'm not in charge of laundry. But dishes I often help with because I do most of the cooking. I do a lot of the cooking for myself. We don't eat the same food, so we don't make the same amount of dishes. I just make more dishes. I am a 5 dishes for one kind of meal kind of girly. So I make 2 loads of dishes a day, usually. No exaggeration. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I mean, he contributes to that as well, but I understand. So you can imagine from his perspective, he thinks I did dishes today, and I'm like, you have to do them again. And I have to use this specific pot, so you have to wash this pot. And it is not, we do not punish people, okay, for their neurodivergency, but it is his responsibility to make sure that he does everything within his power to not allow his neurodivergency to be the reason he tells me I didn't get this thing done that I told you I would get done, right? So he can't overpromise to me. This guy is a chronic overpromiser, like most liars are. Liars are overpromisers. Yeah, baby, I'll get that done. Totally, I got you. I'll get that done. They tell you something, you build up an expectation, it doesn't come true, you feel deflated. And now you're the crazy one for feeling deflated because they didn't do what they said they would do. And the only difference between my past relationships and this relationship is that we do everything in our power to never overpromise. It's one of the key components of our marriage. We do not overpromise. Yes, chat says that's my partner. Every dish is dirty. Made a salad. That's me, girl. The big joke in the family is like, hi, how many spoons do you need to make coffee? At least 4 to 5. You know what it is? This is what I do. I make my coffee. I pour in my stevia. I mix my thing. And then I reflexively throw it in the sink. And I'm like, uh-oh, it touched the sink. I need a new spoon. Because I'm not just going to get the spoon out and wash it. I need a new spoon now. And then I just do that 4 or 5 times. And then I try to tell myself, Brittany, put the spoon on the plate and use it later. But then sometimes I forget. Sometimes I just do it. And then all of a sudden, I'm 5 spoons in. Okay? So again, instead of my partner blowing up and saying, I can't believe you used so many spoons, he just goes, oh, how many spoons did you use today? All right. And then does dishes. So not only am I not getting punished for using 5 spoons, but he's not getting punished for me needing to tell him, baby, dishes today, yeah? I need dishes. Or, hey, can you run to the store for me and get me this thing? I really decided I needed it right now. Because I don't do the grocery shopping unless I want to or have to. I will tell him, I'm really craving this thing. Can you get it for me before stream is done? Please. I really want it when stream is done. And he will get up, go to the store and get it. Okay? In the same way, he'll come to me and he'll say, I don't know, hey, I'd really like to buy this thing. Can we fit it into the budget? And I'll say watch me about to make a video that's going to go make us some money. Watch me work extra today. I got you. And that's the point, is we make it work within reason. This is not even within reason. This is ridiculous.
And eventually there was a point where my back was on the wall. There was no more keeping it a secret and lying about it. Mm-hmm. So when I came clean to Taylor, or was forced to, I don't want to give myself credit hey, babe, actually I've been lying for something. That's not.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Not really what happened. What happened was there was no more room to move. And obviously she was very hurt.
Taylor, when did you realize something was wrong?
Even from the beginning, as soon as he received the money from his house, I had doubts. He would go back to his hometown, blow a good amount of money.
See how I said, even having a house, men will own a house and sell the house and be like, yeah, I've owned and sold a house. Yeah, but you spent the money. What good is you having a Bugatti if you're leasing it? Or not leasing it, but if you have a loan on it? What good is bragging that you bought and sold a house if you don't have anything to show for it? The perk of buying and selling a home is that you invested that money into something else, right?
I would be like, what is going on? He's like, well, I just need to have fun. I need to do this. I need to do that. So we had a lot of talks about that. And then he had blown through everything. I didn't know yet. He had gotten the personal loan and he was doing a Zoom.
Now look, I've never combined finances with anybody, but I also didn't expect people to lie to me about their finances. So when I was dating people when we were living together, I thought they were being transparent about their money because I was being transparent about mine. I didn't learn until later, how not transparent my partners were being. And I was like, oh, I thought this was your money situation. This is and I know I didn't check their bank accounts because we weren't married and we didn't combine finances. Somehow money would just show up or not show up. Like I said, my partner that I was living with, he did pay the phone bill and he paid his phone bill, which I learned later his ex was paying, which was very, okay. I learned he was paying the internet bill and the air conditioning bill and stuff like that. But I learned later he was putting on a credit card, which is, I get it. I put a lot of things on a credit card too, but I was just under an impression that he was doing some variation of a fair share, only to realize that he had no plan to ever really be responsible with money, right? And I, who was trying to be responsible with money, was just really bad with money because my mental health was suffering. But I was really trying to be good. And I just couldn't figure it out. And it makes sense though, because our mental health. So here's the difference. The difference between me and my mental health suffering, and so therefore my money suffers, and my partner and this guy, is that as my mental health got better, because I went to therapy, my money got better. As I did philosophical work, my money got better. I made the effort. And by the way, just a reminder that as I was suffering, and this is not a comparison comment, as I was suffering, I was still somehow paying the rent. So while I was suicidal and self-harming and he was blaming me for it, I was also paying our rent. And his excuse was, I can't sleep because you're always going through it. I can't get anything done. You're always going through it. I have to stay up nights and help you. Even though the reality was what nights when I was working 3 jobs? Sure, you had to be there to do a lot of emotional labor, but I was doing the emotional labor and I was paying bills. So again, under patriarchy, Women do double the work. We know this because women have already said in 2-income households, men and women will work and the women will still do a majority of the household chores. That was my life. That is her life. That is the reality under patriarchy that allows these men to continue telling themselves that their suffering is more important than anyone else's. And I will tell you this as a father my father went through like 2 years of a really hard depression. Really hard depression. And what really impressed me about my father, not that you have to do this. Listen to me when I say this. This isn't about you. This is about my father. Is he still went to work every day and paid the bills. And that was just a testament to my father's values. This is not a reflection of you. Do not internalize this as you are a failure if you did not do this. Something I really respect about my partner and my dynamic is even though we are going through it, we communicate. Even if we're going through something, we communicate. Even if it's not perfect, because we're all individuals, even if I'm having a autism meltdown or something's going on, we still have responsibilities to this family. The perk of having a family that lets you suffer and go through it is you also can still show up for that family. My mother, during that time, reported to me that some of her friends had said, you know, he's been depressed for 2 years. He's not going to church. Are you thinking about divorcing him? And she was like, for what? No. For what? He's still a good person. He's still going to work. We still have nice times together. Yes, it worries me that he's depressed and not going to church, but he's going through something. And that's the point. I'm not going to abandon my partner for being depressed. I'm not going to abandon my partner for having a moment. And even though, and also, we still have to show up for people because everybody is suffering. But in a space where you're safe to suffer, you're also safe to show up in the way that you can. And that's good enough too. You are good enough the way you are as long as you're honestly showing up. This is not honestly showing up. This is bullshit. Okay?
Meeting for his real estate. And he needed something from his email. And I said, don't worry, I'll find it for you. Keep going on your interview. I'm going through his email to find what it is that he needed. And I find an email about the personal loan. And I'm like, this seems odd. So I get him what he needs. He gets off the interview and I'm like, hey, I found this thing in your email. Like, this seems kind of predatory. Is this something that you're doing? And he's like, no, not at all. I was just seeing if I could qualify.
My partner in the past would say, I had to lie to you. I had to lie to you about cheating on you and money and chores because you would judge me. Do you hear yourself? You did a bad thing. And then you're like, I don't want to be judged for it. And that's why you're not telling me? Okay.
For this,
So he lied to her. He deceived her because he didn't want to be judged.
In my head, I'm like, I feel like this is bullshit. And then later he comes clean to me that like in that moment, he went to work and was like screaming, crying, throwing up in the car because obviously I found.
It's like the men who get caught cheating. They're like, ah! You know what I mean? That's what he did. That's what he did.
It was clean to me that like in that moment, he went to work and was like screaming, crying, throwing up in the car because obviously I found out. Even though he had convinced me that it wasn't like that. And then maybe 6 or so months later is when him and I had a conversation.
Look at Ramit's face. Look at Ramit's face.
And I convinced me that it wasn't like that. And then maybe 6 or so months later is when him and I had a conversation. And I was like, is there something you need to tell me?
You're telling me it took him 6 months to come clean about it?
After he had taken out the loan, yeah. I think in total it ended up being a year from when he moved in is when I...
Chat said 1,000 men versus accountability. Literally. Which is why under patriarchy, predators get away with it. Because predatory behavior always comes at, she seduced me. Look at what they were wearing. I was vulnerable. I have a porn addiction. You don't understand. This is financial abuse. I consider this abuse. This was the kind of abuse that I was like, this is abusive. At some point, whether you intend to or not, she is being abused. This woman is in an abusive relationship.
Really found out everything.
What happened when you found out? What was it?
I was devastated because I never wanted to feel like a man was just living off of me. And that's exactly what it ended up feeling like. Because here,
for the record, my partner does not work and I do not feel that way. When I was dating my ex and we lived together, we did not share money, and yet he contributed some of the household income or some of the household bills. I felt like a man was living off me. In a bad way. This is a very particular saying. She's not saying she doesn't mind providing for her partner. She doesn't care. She said that in the earlier part. You didn't see it. She doesn't care if she provides. She cares that she's being taken advantage of. This is why your partner working isn't a have to, but the way you have the relationship matters. I never minded providing for my partners. That's why when my ex said to me, you'll never respect me unless I make more money, it was like, you do not fundamentally understand me. I am more than happy to be the breadwinner. But I can't do this alone. I cannot do a relationship alone. I need you to be here by my side helping. And I want to help you. And so partnership has to be equal. Partnership has to be equal. You both have to show up 100. Okay?
I am paying for our whole life in hopes that you can save money, do your investments, pay for your real estate so that you can do everything you want to do. Because he's telling me that's what he wants. Like, that's his dream. And so I'm like, okay.
Oh, brother, men in their real estate.
Like, I'm in a place that I can absolutely pay for us while you're doing that. I mean, I did ask you to move down here with me. I asked you to give up a lot. So, that's the least I can do.
And then well, you asked me to move here. You told me to give up my life to be here. You're the reason I live here, right? Okay, and I've never told this part of the story, I think. I'm pretty sure, let me just tell it to you really fast. My ex was dating a woman much older than him. And she was a doctor and she was financially stable. Well, she wasn't financially stable, but she made like $20K a month. She didn't know how to do her finances. Very common with doctors. And he told me that she made him quit school to come live with her and be like a houseboy. And in like a BDSM way. And I was like, I think you're in an abusive relationship. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, why would an older person beg somebody in their early 20s, right? And even his mother, like the people at the time were like really upset about this relationship dynamic because it felt really abusive. And though I think there was abuse there in that way, and though I think there's a lot there, he also financially took advantage of her, which was very interesting. And I didn't realize that until he moved in with me. So here he got out of this bad relationship, came to live with me. And it wasn't until he lived with me that I realized like, oh, you were taking advantage of her. But he was taking advantage of her, but she was too toxic in her own relationship with self to not realize she was taking advantage of him. But it wasn't mutual abuse in that sense. Somehow the relationship dynamic was so twisted, I couldn't even tell you really the details, but I'll tell you this, that story he told me about leaving school to be with her was a lie. Every story he told me where he was always the victim, it ended up being a pattern that I realized every time he told a story, he was the victim. Every single story. And then I realized like, oh, now I don't even know. Not that he can't be abused. I think he was taken advantage of by this older woman. And yet, I know he took advantage of me. And so I was like, wait, what's happening? And I realized like, okay, he has something really wrong with him. So then I kept thinking, okay, you need to go to therapy. We need to get you intervention. We need to help you because something is really wrong with you. Everybody in our friend group keeps saying, hey, something's wrong with him. And I'm like, okay, what's wrong with you? But then he sounded like this guy. And you wouldn't say, looking at this guy, that there must be something severely wrong with him. You would just be like, what's wrong with you, dude? But there is something wrong. And the question is, what is the wrong thing? And how do you deconstruct it from the systems that encourage and raise and create this situation? Because remember, even if you got rid of patriarchy, you'd still have him. He does not simply exist because the systems at play. He exists because of his own relationship with self. So as we deconstruct and dismantle systems, we have to understand that past the systems, there's still people. And people have problems.
And then I find out he blew $40,000 and wasn't paying me, wasn't offering me a dime.
Damn.
And
so he got all this money and didn't give her a penny to help. His value system, his morals, his ethics allowed him to not show up for her in the relationship. Okay? He's the kind of guy that if he won the lottery, he'd be like, it's all mine. Even if she went 50%, even if she bought him a lotto ticket and gave it to him, he would be like, it's all mine. Right? Chazad, how long have they been together? I could be wrong on the timeline, but I think it's only a couple years. I don't think it was that long, maybe. 3 years, maybe?
So much like I was being taken advantage of. It felt like I was obviously not a priority. And then to keep up a lie for a year, knowing I was finding out little bits and pieces and I was just continuously getting lied to, gaslit, that really hurt our relationship a lot.
Now, just for the record, by the end of this episode, they're still together. And by the end of this episode, he says, I think the best thing for us to do is combine our finances. Girl. Anyways, you can have fun watching that if you would like. Okay, next video. Okay. Jesus Christ, we're almost there, girls. Okay, next video. Wait, which one? Which couple is this? Oh my God, this couple. Are you ready? Hold your breath. married, children. Oh, this couple. I'll let it play.
Oh, wow. In your mind.
Yes.
Did you ever celebrate when, Michael, you got the pay increase?
No.
No. Just another
So Michael got a pay increase, and Ramit says, hey, did you ever celebrate it?
day, huh?
Yes.
That's a problem.
Yes.
When you first reached out to us, Michael, you were earning roughly $60,000.
Correct.
And now you're earning $95,000.
Correct.
You had like a 50%.
Okay. Michael is stoic. He's quiet. He's reserved. He says as a man, he grew up being told not to show emotions and not to talk to people about anything, to just put his head down and work. That his job as a man was not to confide in his wife, but to just be the man and get it figured out, right?
Increase in salary.
Correct.
What happened?
The new job that I started in March is salary. So that allows me to know at least twice a month what my net pay will be, in addition to any hours or extra hours that I work with the airline.
This 95K number is fresh to me. Like, I'm hearing it for the first time live. That 95K is your new annual salary. I thought it was more around 65 to 75.
Did you all never talk about how much the salary increase was going to be?
No, simple answer, no.
Okay. Why not?
The reason we didn't talk about the salary increase, because to me, it was almost a swap. At the airline, I could have made $60,000, but the new job is salary $60,000.
Okay. Hold your breath. Ready for this? When they were first dating, so they've known each other throughout their life and dated as adults. When they were dating, she should have dumped him here, but here it was, girl. She married him. Okay, ready? She calls him, texts him, hey, I'm coming over. I can't wait to surprise you, XYZ. She gets to his apartment, knocking on the door. Nobody's answering. He pulls up behind her in the car and goes, hey, I don't live here anymore. And she goes, what do you mean you don't live here anymore? He goes, I got evicted. I wasn't paying my rent. She goes, wait, what? Gives her a sob story, tells her he was struggling. He pulled himself up. He made a mistake. She was so empathetic. He was so honest and transparent. Oh my gosh, wow. Normally I would leave, but he was so honest. He told me everything. Boom, married. Boom, kids. Boom. Gets a 50% raise, almost 50% raise. Doesn't tell her. Finds out midstream with Ramit. Girl.
And then anything I work in addition to the airport can range from...
What's happening right now? You're using a range and it's actually not serving you at all. Because you have this super confusing thing, you actually just skipped over the most important part of this, which is telling my wife, I got a 50% increase in pay. That's like the only thing that matters out of all of this. But you skipped over it because you overwhelmed yourself with ranges and details. How does that strike you?
I don't know if it strikes me... I guess because, like you said, I'm always just focused on what's the next. Can't celebrate being on a plateau or a mountaintop because I still know, I feel like it's still more of a climb to go.
What is your role in this relationship, Michael?
I feel like a Swiss Army knife to be put to use on whatever's needed for the family.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever role that can look like, I can morph and be utilized in multifaceted different ways.
And how does it feel that you are a tool?
Actually, it feels good to be needed.
I like that. It's kind of an interesting metaphor. I like the value you said that you are wanted, you are needed. I like that. Personally, I don't think I would want to be seen as a tool that is picked up when it's needed. And then, all right, nice to see you, Swiss Army knife. Throw them in the drawer and shut the drawer for another month and a half. The reason that Michael didn't bring up this massive salary change is exactly what we are exploring right now. Because of the way that he sees himself. So if you see yourself as a tool, then the implication is you can, number one, never zoom up to see the full picture of what's going on because you live in the weeds. And number two, it's actually not fun. You're just a tool that gets used to advance the family to the next thing. Do, action, tactical, and then you die. Kind of a dark vision, but actually one that a lot of men actually embrace. It's
because of patriarchy. Because of patriarchy. And Patriarchy also encourages men to lie about their success, like all the founding fathers did. Men rewrite history over and over again so they can live up to this mythical standard that patriarchy has set before them. And every man who doesn't live up to the standard, it wasn't his fault, it was the woman's. It wasn't his fault, it was gays. It wasn't his fault, it was the blacks. It wasn't his fault, it was XYZ. Okay? It's everybody else's fault. And that's what I'm saying. This whole I'm a stoic man, I'm just a tool, I show up for my family. Showing up for your family is transparency, which Ramit goes into. Okay? Later in the stream, Ramit goes into showing up for your family, being transparent with your wife. Now, Ramit, like myself, believes in combining finances with your person. But of course, you want to be combining finances with the person you trust. The issue is here, a lot of these couples are toxic. One thing that I just learned so much watching Ramit already is how, one, good my marriage is. Holy fuck. And two, how good we are with money with so much less. We are so good with our money and we make so much less. And I can't even believe it. And this is why I say the irony of like patriarchy is that it is ruining everybody's life, but also you do not have to only see yourself through the lens of it, but that's what they do. They internalize their sense of every gender and internalize their sense of value through patriarchy, which is why older women's solution to struggling with partnership is to date the way men date. Wrong. Because men date through the lens of patriarchy. Wrong. And then, of course, my suggestion is to deconstruct gender as it plays a role in your relationship, period. My marriage does not take gender into consideration when coming together as a unit. Obviously, we keep in mind the way we were raised and influenced because of our gender and the way we were prescribed gender, but we don't assign roles based off of gender. Now, okay, we're done with Ramit. If you guys want to go check him out, please do. I want to show you this as it gets us prepared for tomorrow's stream. Okay, one more little section here. Once again, we're revisiting, I forgot his name already. What's his name? What's this man's name, is it? You'll know. Okay, watch this video. Why young men don't like Democrats. Just this section. Let me show you.
Struggles of boys and men, but too often as a justification for turning back the clock and restoring traditional roles. So the left turns its back on boys and men, and the right turns back the clock on women and girls. As you can imagine, these guys had a lot to say about both of these problems.
What I'll say about Democrats not only abandoning men, but I also think they kicked them into the curb and spit on them. You're telling men not to be men. You're telling men they can't watch football because it's sexist, or UFC because...
Who said that? Who said men can't watch football? It's sexist. Maybe make football not sexist so everybody can watch it.
It's sexist. Yeah, men are into fighting. That's why Trump is there. You know, because Trump isn't abandoned us.
The Democratic Party has abandoned men.
Oh, and also just FYI, Chad was right. He's going to keep the money to himself. Yeah, that guy in the last couple Ramit was interviewing, he didn't tell her about the pay increase because he's hiding money from her. Unless, yeah, that's,
Wholeheartedly agree with that. Does everyone else?
Yeah.
But I think what's worse is the Republican Party actively lying to men. They play the culture war. They don't want to talk about who could actually be exploited.
Okay, can we just say something out loud that I know nobody wants to say? These aren't men. I'm watching a group of boys. And I mean that literally. None of these people are men. You know, one of the problems I find is that 19-year-old boys think they're men. With peace and love, can you please wait a second? Can you hold up? Okay. Can you hold up? Now, growing up in a conservative bubble, this is something they really believe. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. It's so bad. My conservative bubble believes that teenagers were more adult back then, whatever this mystical back then is, because they were given more responsibility. And so it's different. It's different because we don't give people responsibility. They're stunted. Except we gave boomers responsibility and you are so stunted. Explain it. Explain how the same generation that says they were given more responsibility than the new one is so stunted then. Didn't seem to help you.
Them, like billionaires, corporations, like trans people are not hiking my credit card interest rates. They did not keep my wages stagnant.
Let's go,
You're
King.
focusing on the wrong 1%.
You're a right-wing man, Joel. What do you think?
I was going to say...
Just threw you under the bus.
To your point, yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to get that out, man. I had to.
It's an open forum. It's an open forum.
Go on.
Yeah, I might have to say a point against...
Speaking as a transphobe.
Speaking as a transgender myself. But, no.
Yeah, crazy.
No, the point you made earlier about how sort of the working class people on both sides, there really is no need to hate each other. I was thinking about that recently. The divide in America really should be class. You know,
Okay, this is a centrist perspective, right? The division in America should actually be about class. That's really what it's about. It's about all of it. Every single thing is connected. These structural systems are in place. Evil people will take advantage of it. And no, not all good people will be thrown under the bus, but some good people will be, because it comes at the expense of people. But you're not good just because you're not rich, and you're not good just because you're a minority, and you're not good just because you are. You have to work to be less bad every day. Okay? And then the gendered perspective of this plays a role, right? The Democratic Party has abandoned men. Okay, look at this video from a TikTok or a YouTuber named Man Talks.
But the main piece here that I really want to drive home is we are creating a narrative where it's become socially acceptable to hate on men.
Whoa, socially acceptable to hate on men, right?
In a way that we would never allow with women. We would.
Except we do every day. The president called a woman piggy, literally called her piggy, okay? Men talk shit on women every day and they make millions of dollars through it. Just remember my time in the Debate Bro bubble. Those men spent time shitting on women and became so fucking rich. Sneeko, Destiny, Abba and Preach, all of the men who made a literal career, okay, playing into misogynistic talking points are very rich. They're all millionaires. All the women pushing back or saying something, we are not. You made a whole career. These men make whole careers. That's why men get on the internet right away and start talking about how women suck. It's such a good cash cow.
Never, ever allow individuals on any side of the political spectrum to just point blank say women are the fundamental problem.
Again, men as a people are not the fundamental problem. Men as a system are. Sneak peek of exactly why we're going to talk about gender tomorrow, because it is different from patriarchy and misogyny. This is the new politics of gender identity with Kathleen Stock. Kathleen is basically, I would call her a TERF, but I'm sure she would disagree with that terminology.
So this is the bit, as it were, of the new kind of gender politics that you kind of find problematic, the idea that it's somehow a private mental state that defines your gender identity, not this kind of social role that you play.
Well, I wouldn't care at all if people weren't trying to reify it into law and policy, right? I have no problem with people saying that they are one thing or the other, or acting in any way, or altering their bodies if that's how they feel. But through quite powerful institutions, and it's happening internationally, actually, there's this idea that your inner gender identity, which can come completely apart from your sex and your gender expression even, in the old sense, should determine your rights and access to spaces or resources or sports teams or rape crisis shelters or whatever. Now, that obviously poses a problem, particularly for females.
Right? So they want gender to be influenced through policy and implemented through policy, gender expectation for men and women, for male and female. But anybody else? Absolutely not. So they don't have a problem with creating policy based off gender. But only the gender they understand. And that's why we'll talk about that tomorrow, because I think that's such an important part of this conversation, right? Chad says racism also has a part here, or at least from what I've witnessed. We'll talk about racism the day after, because that definitely needs its own stream, okay? Let's take a 2-second break, and when I come back, I have one comment I want to answer, and I want to encourage you guys to also leave comments on this stream after it posts, so I can answer it again tomorrow, because somebody left me an amazing comment. I want to read it, but I need a 2-second break. I'll be right back. Okay, so let me pull this up here for you guys. Okay, pausing Elvin's music. 1, 2, 3. So I really love this question. I got it yesterday after the stream, and it's so important. Okay. And tomorrow we're going to go back to, I have a questionnaire for the next few streams. Today didn't require a questionnaire. Today was just like doing our groundwork on, I think, systems and patriarchy, but understanding that like ultimately this is a philosophy channel. We're doing people work. Okay. People work, again, systems influence people, people uphold systems. Okay. Great question from somebody in chat yesterday. Let's go ahead and read out this comment. It says, great video. I have a question. I know you believe that not everyone should strive to be a 5 because that's not where their joy lies. 5 on my levels framework. Okay, links in the description. I have to wonder about the criticisms of people who essentially haven't deconstructed enough and are stuck in 2 beliefs. I'm going to pause it right there. Deconstruction can be done by everyone deconstructs. Deconstruction is just an action. It's a verb. It's like saying go to the gym. Okay, so deconstruction does not imply an end result. Deconstruction is a verb, it's an action. And when I say deconstruct, I don't then mean it will end up in a result. Like going to the gym doesn't result in abs. It depends if what you're working out, right? So right there, that's the wrong setup for the question because it's insinuating that 2s don't deconstruct. They do. That's why you see people deconstruct from religion all the time, right? Okay. I agree with your critique of Ion, but are we not just expecting her to hold 5 framework that understands that no bubble will have the answer and she needs to stop jumping from one bubble to the next? I get that. As your viewers, we can use up people and ideas to discuss philosophical ideas, but there also seems to be a frustration against people like Sam Harris and Ion for not getting it, when I doubt they could get it without reaching level 5 framework. That is a mistake. So now the chatter is insinuating they're a 5. But if they were a 5, then why are they asking this question? Because this question doesn't make sense in the framework of the 5. No offense to this chatter, right? Because what you're saying is you have a fundamental misunderstanding that 2s don't deconstruct when they very much do. I'll explain in a second. No fault to you for thinking you're a 5. A lot of people do, because a lot of people don't understand the framework. And I get it. It takes a while to get it. It does, okay? You said, I share your interest in zooming out as much as possible. Okay, don't blame Sharia. Don't blame the Middle East. Don't blame Islam. Don't blame religion. Keep zooming out until we get closer to overreaching systems of oppression like misogyny and patriarchy. But it's not clear to me. Are you frustrated at 2s for holding those views? And them for not having the awareness to understand that they're only seeing a piece of the puzzle. So this is a perfectly good question, a great question. This is a 2 question because you're fundamentally understanding your zoom out process here. You didn't even zoom out far enough. 5ness is a zooming out all the way into the universe. There are no systems in 5 framework. There are no patriarchy. There are no people. The framework of the levels disintegrates human beings at the top of the hierarchy. It eradicates the fact that you even exist. It says you not only exist in the soup that is the universe, you are unseeable, you are unidentifiable. Because in this vast, great universe, you are simply just a speck, right? So I am not upset that Sam Harris and Ion are Islamophobic because they're not 5s or because I want them to be 5s. It's upsetting because it's bigoted. I don't like bigotry. I am showing upsettedness at the hate and bigotry because I think it adds more harm and I want to harm reduce. I think 2s can harm reduce really well. I don't think you have to be bigoted to be a 2. I think 2s don't have to hold bigoted beliefs. There are plenty of amazing 2 bubbles that are not bigoted. The only, there is one way, I tried to show up on stream in my 5 framework, but it doesn't work. I can't show up on stream, guys, and be like, hi, everybody. Just remember, people are all floating on a rock and we're all just like vibing and, child rape happens and starvation happens and racism is just a part of life. No, because I have to also make sure people know, hey, racism bad. Hey, child rape bad. Hey, this thing bad. Because the other part of the action of my personal values is also harm reduce. So yes, 5 framework is not saying, oh my God, nothing. 5 framework is saying, holy crap, I really am just like a floating little biological creature in space. Okay, noted. I'm going to do my best while I'm here or not. You know, usually it ends up being that way because like the more you recognize your joy, the more likely you are to be compassionate. It's kind of like the correlation between people who are educated having less kids than those who are not educated having more. It's kind of like that. I think the more introspective you are, the more compassionate you are. I think the less bigoted you are. Because it's, you know, it's, you realize like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So there's some sort of correlation there. So it's a good question. It's a really good question. If, what I would love from Sam Harris and Ion is to say, as twos, we are going to work our best to dismantle all and any forms of structural and culturally significant beliefs of oppression, systems of oppression, bigotry, all of the things, right? Because while Sam Harris advocates for women on one side of his mouth, he's also anti-hijab and burqa on the other. Listen to me when I say that if no man ever existed on the planet and patriarchy was never a thing, women would wear hijab. They would wear a burqa. They would wear it because it's cute. And it's fashionable. And sometimes you want to go out in public and not be perceived. And sometimes you will be perceived, but it's like a mask. In the same way that some people wear glasses indoors. Like, tell me you're not hiding, girl. Come on now. Glasses indoors, we're hiding. Okay. So that's a part of the process that, or part of the thought process that people miss, is that we understand that yes, you could be wearing it because of a man or patriarchy, but also if you deconstructed past that, you would still wear it because it's cute. It's like makeup. Yes, some women wear makeup for men and some women wear makeup for themselves. But if you have not deconstructed patriarchy, you'll never believe it. Yeah, sunglasses chat. When people wear sunglasses indoors, you know, generally speaking, unless you have a disability, it usually is, you know, some power move, hiding. I do it. I wear sunglasses sometimes because I don't want people to make eye contact with me, you know? So again, when we have these conversations, I think sometimes people really think they understand the 5 framework or the levels framework, but they don't zoom out past it. Because again, the premise of this question, remember, he said, or they said, I share your interest in zooming out as much as possible. Okay, right? And then as much as possible, he ended it with, keep zooming out until we get closer to overarching arching systems of oppression like misogyny and patriarchy. Until we get closer to, like, what is that as far as you zoom out, bro? That's okay, no problem. But then we're not talking about the same thing. It's not just us versus the planet. The planet is that 2 bubble thinking. Let me bring it up, hold on. Let me bring this up. So just a reminder, a little brief reminder. So 2s think planet Earth is the center of everything. Like, Earth is where all of the reality lies. And 5s know that it's everything. Everything. Human beings are not the center of the universe. Planet Earth is not the center of the universe. It is not the end all be all of what is life. Okay? Life exists, reality exists. This is one section of it. And every other section of it that exists is just as valuable and important and necessary. We are just one of the options. But when you're a 2, you think this is it, baby. This is it. That's why nihilism is like, oh my God, we're just a floating rock in space. Instead of really understanding we are one part of existence. We are not the part of existence. But remember, people really believe that until we, or if we ever find human life somewhere else, it will always be in their mind that we're the only and best and exceptional. And I don't believe that. I don't think human beings are the center of existence. And when you realize that, it fundamentally shifts your role in the universe. Because now instead of thinking I'm at the top, you're even, and it's the same. You're the same as everybody else. Okay? So as long as you believe, okay, as long as your structure looks like this, okay, you won't be able to enjoy life like this. The levels are not a pyramid. This isn't 5 and this isn't 1. Okay? The levels are a relationship. Okay. It's a circle. It's a relationship. It's an experience you're having. Now, I do believe, and this is difficult, I do believe that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, did I count wrong? No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just wrote it bad. Okay. I do think a 1 can be a 2, and a 2 can be a 3, and a 3 can be a 4, and a 5 can be a 5. I do believe a 5 who has a biological medical emergency can start over again in the sense that they get amnesia, they are in a coma, they have an experience that erases the work they did to do all of that introspection, extrospection. But it doesn't mean that they will unless something like that happens, right? So if you're a 5 who gets amnesia, you'd probably be a 2 again because you wouldn't have the memory that built you in and allowed you to go on this journey. Because remember, introspection, extrospection, the levels is a journey. It's a journey into the self and everything outside of the self. It's a process. It's an earning of a process. So if it erases and your brain doesn't remember it, then you'd probably have to do it again in some capacity. But once you're a 5, you don't really forget you're a 5, but you also have to actively engage with it. You have to actively engage. You have to constantly meditate, work in the present, do philosophical work, be introspective, right? And we go out to and we do this basics again, right? We do the basics again because it's a refresher and a reminder to humble yourself and to remember you also need a reminder of why patriarchy bad, right? Okay. Let's see. Chat says, "Oh, are you the person who left the comment?" I don't end my Zoom out there, but it was also just a comment. I was trying to stay concise. Don't think I'm a 5 either. Okay, that's fine. And I don't mean to talk in a condescending way. I'm just autistic, but when we have this conversation, the question is really, really good. It's a really good question. I don't expect people to live within 5 framework, but I do expect people who are 2s to be less bigoted because I know they can be. Plenty of 2s exist on the planet and are deconstructing their bigotry every fucking day. So it is not a big deal for me to ask the philosophical, intelligent dark web or whatever he calls himself, Sam Harris, to do some fucking work. And I am too. It's not the biggest ask for me to ask these people who think they're the smartest people in the room to do some work then. I feel like out of all the people I should be asking, it's them. And I'm not making a prescription. I'm just saying hey, and also I have to be critical because I want you to know where I stand. I'm critical of their work because I need you to know why you should follow me and pay me and become a member and trust me and believe in me and trust my work. Because at the end of the day, I'm working. I'm not your friend. I'm doing a job. And so I need you to feel reassured that the person who you're supporting and helping, that you trust her work. Because you know what I mean? I don't know about you, but I stopped supporting people that hold bigoted or awful beliefs. I go, withdrawing my capital from you. And I need you to know that I'm going to be critical of bigoted people because that's not the goal here, right? Let's see. Chat says, wasn't makeup invented for men, then later used against women? I don't know when or who invented makeup. I'm not a historian, but I will say all genders across history have used makeup from our understanding, right? Chat said body decoration existed before patriarchal and capitalistic systems. Absolutely, right? Chat says, even if not all 2s are bigoted, do they not hold limited beliefs that are ignorant to some extent? I know that all living beings harm others, though. I mean, fives can hold beliefs that are harmful to people, right? Because you're just a person at the end of the day. I learn new things every day as a person. Being a 5 doesn't mean you know everything in the universe. It doesn't mean you're a perfect person. It's a relationship with self and everything outside of self. So 5s can also be ignorant, right? I can hold a limiting belief. I can hold a limiting belief about myself, right? I don't think I can do that. I don't believe in that. I don't know if I can, I can hold limiting beliefs, right? So, you have to do the work. Again, the levels are a relationship with yourself. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? And everything outside of yourself. What is, who is, what will be. Okay? It's about you. The levels are for you to find your place in the universe, especially in a world where we feel so lost. What am I doing here? Why am I here? Who is I? Right? Chat said everyone should deconstruct though. Not everyone should reach 5. Is that more of a fair prescription? Trying to understand your mission on YouTube. I don't make, great. Okay. I don't make prescriptions. My job here on YouTube is to simply be a vessel to like give people tools and be like, good luck. My job is not to be your mother, your therapist, or your teacher, or your leader. My job is just to say, hey, I discovered this thing and I'm sharing, because I think we should collectively share our knowledge. I think it is good to share successful pieces of knowledge and to update them as you get older. So I might be saying something now that later I correct, but right now on my journey, here's what I've discovered. Here's the data. Maybe this will help. Because that's how I learn and that's how I think you learn, right? But Chad said your philosophical Home Depot, let's go. I want to give people tools that one, I wish I had when I was younger, and two, that I really do think fundamentally changed my life. But I'm not making a prescription and I can't even guarantee they'll be helpful for you. Like I'm plant-based, but I don't make the prescription you should be plant-based. But I do think that the future is plant-based. I think the future is harm reduction. And I do find it pretty funny that people don't think they're violent, but they slaughter animals. Oh, hello. Can I tell you about this, please? I'm watching a cooking show with my partner. We love cooking shows together. And they took these crabs, okay? One steamed them alive. One put the crab alive straight on the grill. And I screamed and I said, oh my God, oh my God. Oh my God. And I'm watching on TV on a cooking show where the most beautiful plates are being put together. He just put the crab straight on the grill. And I was like, do you know in Europe, they're making it illegal to boil crab and lobster alive because they think it's inhumane? You're going to have to kill them as fast as possible. The future is plant-based. The future is plant-based. The future is getting away from killing animals in a way that makes you feel better about yourself. All for what? And both chefs left crab shell in their meals. So was it worth it, boys? You know, was it worth it? And so, yeah, I think the future is plant-based. I think the future is less violence. And I was just horrified at watching that. I was horrified. But it was so normal. It was just so normal. Nobody batted an eye. Nobody thought of it. Just so normal. Just like in America. You know, just like anywhere else. It's just so normal to, you know, to kill so unnecessarily. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? The way we choose to harm reduce. Like pro-lifers will say the best harm reduction is to save unborn babies. And I feel like the best harm reduction is to eradicate as many forms of violence from your life as possible, right? Because we all exist, so we will create some form of violence, right? And one of those ways is like, okay, no animals, don't murder anyone, that'd be really good. All of these things, XYZ. But these same people that are like voting for Trump, voting for wars, voting for genocides, all these people are like, but unborn babies. But unborn babies. I mean, sure, that is one of my goals as well. One of my goals is to bring down the amount of abortions by giving people proper birth control and sex education. But they won't do that either, will they? So not only will they not do it, right? Because, by the way, Republicans have abortions. For the record, conservatives use birth control. They just pretend they don't. Lots of Republicans get abortions. Okay? So when we have this conversation, okay, you have to think about your own relationship to value. I don't believe in objective morality. So I think you have to do the work to come up with a framework that is adaptable and updatable, will change over time, but is predicated on the belief that life is worth showing dignity towards. It is worth it to have a dignified life, and it is worth it to eradicate bigotry and prejudice from our frameworks, because it's so philosophically evil. That's why I showed that Britt Hartley video earlier. Patriarchy taught me this, and it showed all the men leaders, all the male leaders, all the patriarchal leaders, and all the destruction that when a man does it, it's the savior of the universe. But if a woman did it, she's a witch burner at the stake. A man performs a miracle and he's God. A woman performs a miracle and she's a witch, burn her. Right? Chad says, do you think everyone should deconstruct so that they do less harm, though? Not be homophobic, misogynistic? Isn't that fair to say? Yeah, I think without making a prescription, if your job, and this is the point of going back to the basics, we're going to talk about this a lot tomorrow and the next few days coming up. I'm going to challenge the question of, do you really believe this? That's the next 3 days of content or whatever this week goes. Okay. Do you really believe this? Do you really know this to be true? Is this something? And if you believe this, then what follows? Okay. If you believe all human beings are created equal under the eyes of God, how does that show up in your life? If you really believe that suffering unnecessarily is unwise, how does that show up in your life? Right? And that's what's really important. So without making the prescription of you should deconstruct, because listen, it's like saying you shouldn't rape a child. To even ask me to make that prescription feels so philosophically evil. Why should I even have to say, do not rape a child? In the same way, why should I even have to say, do not be bigoted towards homosexuals? Do not hate black and brown people. You do not think Palestinians deserve a genocide. Do not think of people this way. Why should we even have to say this? Because human beings are philosophically evil, and that's why we have to do the work of being less bad every day. The fact that we even have to say, maybe you shouldn't be evil, is evil within itself. We are philosophically evil. And yet, holding two contradictory thoughts together, because that's what life is, we're really fucking great. We're just not as great as we think we are. But we are pretty great. And you really got to understand that. And that goes back to patriarchy as well and misogyny. If men are trained under patriarchy and really believe it, and then women internalize it, that men are literally born better, right? What do they always say? They run faster, they're better chefs, better hairdressers, better makeup artists. Men are just better than women at everything. That's a belief that men are born better than women and therefore are entitled and deserve to be in charge. And if you believe this, then you believe that this idea of being born alone gets to decide if you are better than people who exist in the same in the same world as you. You are both born into the world, but somehow you being simply born makes you better. And that just feels so inherently philosophically evil. To believe that two babies can be born at the same time and one is inherently better simply because of what they look like or are perceived as. It feels so intellectually dishonest to believe this could be true. And yet, we've built all of civilization believing this thing, for the most part, human beings as a species. So, the one thing about people I will say is we don't need to know much to build civilization. Like, all of the world has been built off very few facts, And going back to what somebody said, multiple of you said earlier in chat, is like, being a woman is so funny, or being perceived as feminine is so funny, because you will say something, or you'll have a female coworker say something, and a man won't believe it until a man says it. Men suffer simply existing, but a woman who's been raped has nothing to complain about. These are the kinds of feedbacks, by the way, we do get back from the men in our lives. Remember, the data women are collecting as a group, gay people are collecting as a group, black people are collecting as a group, is depending on where you are in the category, of course, because a lot of those minorities also play into the systems. But if you're the ostracized minority, we're also going off the feedback we're getting from our communities. We're not just making it up about some guy we saw on TikTok. We're listening to the way you talk at the dinner table. Okay? We're listening to the way you hear about our struggles and then say, listen to me when I say this, 99% of the people I know who are AFAB, who are assigned female at birth, do everything in their power to help the men in their life. They date them, they marry them, they have their kids, they get them into therapy, they try to help them with their budgets, they try to show up as much as possible, and yet it is never enough. So when they get beaten down and torn down enough, and they do, yes, maybe start to blame men as a whole, but I think it's more like men as a system than as a people. We can go to therapy for that, okay, if it's more than that. Men will say, you just hate men. I don't know how to tell you this, but what's it like being the one singular man that makes another person hate a whole gender? Now, let me tell you this. That's also not the answer. I do not want women to literally start hating men. And that's certainly not what needs to happen through gender deconstruction. But so long as any person upholds the standard of oppression, they too become a threat to your life. And yet you as an individual must hold a compassion for them. And I'm not saying all the time, every day, I'm saying for split seconds of time, which goes back to that MAGA Karen who is raped. You will not take from me my empathy or sympathy for rape victims, whether it's Lauren Southern, who I believe was raped based off her own account, or this MAGA Karen who was raped and I believe her. You will not steal from me my compassion for these women. And yet, separate from the fact that I have compassion for them, and if they ever needed some sort of a resource, I would do my best to get it to them within reason. In the same way that I would do for any rape victim, no matter gender. It doesn't mean I have to support, promote, talk well of these people. I won't speak well of you, but I'll still get you help. I will never agree with you politically, and I will still find you resources if I can. Okay? It's a little bit not literal, so don't be autistic and take it literally. Nobody DM me. Okay? Figure it out. But the point is, in my community, if somebody in my community directly came to me and said, Brittany, I know I voted for Trump. I know I'm anti-gay marriage. I know I'm everything you hate, but I really need your help right now. I was assaulted and I don't know where to go. You're the only person I can go to. Of course I am, because your conservative bubble won't help you, but I got you, girl. And I'm not going to help you out of spite. I'm going to help you out of my values. My values say to help people because it's the right thing to do. And especially if I have the resources and the ability to do so, I will show up for you. And this is about me. It's about my values. You get to decide every day how you want to show compassion to people, meaning to suffer with. But I couldn't imagine somebody in my life coming to me who's MAGA, who said to me, Brittany, I was raped. Can you help me? And me saying, go fuck off. You voted for a rapist. Why should I help you? In what world would I say that to a rape victim? But that's what you're doing in my comment sections. When you say, fuck these women, I have no sympathy for them. They voted for a rapist. When I'm showing compassion, specifically about their rapes, this is not the time for you to say, but they voted for Trump. This is the time for you to say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm devastated for you. Would you like to continue this conversation, or should we maybe end it? I really just feel like this is the time to maybe switch the conversation up. And if they say, no, I'm really glad I shared this information with you. I want to continue the conversation. I just want you to know the context. Okay, thank you for sharing that with me respectfully. And I disagree with your conclusion here based off of the data. And I really feel like, given the data that I have, I want to harm reduce the chances of that happening to anyone else. So when you victim blame yourself for your own rape, I can't help but feel, based off of the data, I know that this is a cycle that will continue if we don't stop it. And I'm sure you would agree we don't want it to happen again. We don't want people to be raped. And it sucks though, because women raised under MAGA, raised under conservatism, they really do believe it's their fault, even if they were 5 years old. You know how many years of therapy that takes to deconstruct? And not only that, but these women won't go to therapy, so they go to their friends, i.e. me. So now here's me, who's not a therapist, who's not a professional, who doesn't have a medical background, and I'm the only singular resource they can go to. What do I do now? What do I do now? And so, again, even if we dismantled patriarchy, got rid of white supremacy, we'd still have to deal with the fact that our grandfathers raped people, or our uncles touched people, or our aunties physically abused people, or sexually and mentally abused people, or our sisters, our brothers, our neighbors. All of these things, I think, are made worse by these systems, 100% worse. Like 80% of the harm in the world is probably coming directly from the systems. But we still are us, and we got a lot of problems. Okay? We have a lot of problems. Yeah. Discord said this is why you feed starving Nazis. And I get it. In a world where you want to punch Nazis, sometimes you have to. Other times you feed them. You have to have the wisdom and discernment to know what you do in the moment. You have to, for your sake of survival and joy, have to know the difference between when you feed a man, when you feed a Nazi, when you feed a rapist, and when you punch one. You got to know the difference. because different situations will call for different reactions. You must have the discernment, because if you always feed and you never punch, if you always punch and you never feed, what good is that going to do anybody? It's going to cause more harm. We are looking to reduce harm. So in every situation, you must use all of your brain power to say, how do I best interact with this interaction to bring out the best result? And what is the best result? Reducing harm. Reducing harm. Reducing harm. At least according to Brittany's subjective values. Okay. All right, girls, we did it. I'll see you again tomorrow. We're going to do why racism bad. Great. No. That's a lie. We're doing why gender bad. No. We're doing gender tomorrow. Then we're doing racism. My bad. We're doing gender, then racism, then ableism. Okay, don't let me lose track. That's what we're doing. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. And thank you for your super chats. Thank you for liking this. And go check out my latest podcast on why older women date younger men. Oh, guys, it's good. Please go hype it. Hype it on your cell phones. I'll link it in the chat. Well, I'll link my podcast in the chat. Go do it, please. Thank you. I love you. Bye. I love you in a non-parasocial toxic way. I love you. Bye.